Everyone here will be working at the new restaurant, my new restaurant, where I'm the owner. I can't work with someone as clueless as you anymore. Oh, but I'll leave behind the useless person. This place is a vegetable-focused restaurant. Barbara, who had been the co-owner, announced she was taking all the employees with her, except me. Her words seemed to be the signal. The staff, who had been smirking, slowly began to walk out of the kitchen, one by one. As more and more people left, the kitchen became deserted, leaving only me and the owner, Karen. Karen collapsed to her knees, sitting on the floor. Why is this happening? She muttered, her head hung low in despair. Of all days, today we had a reservation from the group that helped fund the restaurant's opening. It's all over now. Watching her slumped on the floor, I, the dishwasher, made up my mind. I'll cook. What? But you're just... Karen's eyes widened when she saw the dishes I made, her shock leaving her speechless. Who are you? My name is Brian Anderson. I work part-time as a dishwasher at this small, family-run restaurant. To put it simply, it's a restaurant that specializes in vegetables. We pride ourselves on using organic, pesticide-free vegetables, with a menu focused on lunch service. Everything, from soups to main dishes, and even desserts, is made almost entirely from vegetables. The selection varies from day to day, but there's also a section for selling vegetables. Letting customers enjoy the natural taste of vegetables has always been the belief of the store's owner, Karen Moore. She also has a best friend and business partner. Hey, you can't use a cucumber that's all crooked like this. Just because it's organic doesn't mean we can overlook how ugly it looks. Have some sense of aesthetics. And by the way, if there are any more cooking mistakes, there will be some kind of penalty. These vegetables are expensive, you know. The person shouting in the kitchen is Karen's co-owner and business partner, Barbara Davis. I understand that organic vegetables naturally have a less than perfect appearance, but Barbara's obsession with presentation and cost seemed to be getting stronger. Just when the kitchen was in that state, a bright voice called out, "Good job, everyone. This is the last order for lunch, so let's give it one more push." As soon as Karen, smiling, came in, Barbara walked out. She asked me what happened, and I briefly explained. Barbara is very ambitious, and that's something I benefit from. But for now, let's just focus on the customers we have. The kitchen started moving again. Karen whispered to me, "You know, there are always going to be some problems, but as long as we stick to the store's motto, we'll be okay." "That's true," I answered with a smile, and Karen smiled back. I shared her belief in the store's motto of letting customers enjoy the natural taste of organic vegetables. But not everyone felt the same. After lunch, during the break, I was washing the last few dishes for the final customer. A few kitchen staff were still around. Can customers really even tell the difference in taste? I bet they just want to brag about eating organic. Meanwhile, we have to put up with all the nagging to cook it right. Does the owner even get that? This sort of gripe session was a regular occurrence, and there was another reason it always happened in the kitchen. Just as I was finishing up, someone kicked me from behind, and I nearly dropped the dish I was holding. "Oh, my bad. You're lucky your job is so easy. If you broke a dish, you'd probably get fired. It's not like you even have to deal with dressing. We check with the customers to make sure we leave out any veggies they don't like, so you get dishes back clean as a whistle. All you have to do is rinse them off." Man, being a dishwasher sounds like a dream. We're the ones holding this place up, dealing with all the complaints. But hey, working part-time as a dishwasher That's just embarrassing. No way, man, I'd rather be a bum than do that. Without bothering to hold back their laughter, they walked out of the kitchen. They always mocked me before heading to the break room, especially when Barbara had been extra critical. I guess it was their way of taking it out on someone. As long as they did their job right, I didn't care. As long as it didn't go against Karen's values, I could let it slide. I finished washing the last dish. I've been here since the store opened, and now it's so popular that reservations are a must. I thought this success would continue into a bright future, but everything changed after an event I never saw coming. I had the day off yesterday, so I came in early that day. Usually, when I take a day off, the dishes are left in a mess, and I have to rewash some of them. So I came in to check on things. Yesterday, Karen said she couldn't come to the store because she had to inspect the suppliers. Before entering the store, I suddenly felt a strange sensation. There were cardboard boxes from an unfamiliar vendor left by the dumpster. Thinking that there might have been an accident yesterday, I hurried to the kitchen. Of course, no one was there yet. It looked like no one even tried to clean up. The sink was filled with food waste, and it was food waste in a shape that I couldn't even recognize what dish it came from. Just to be sure, I opened the trash can as well. There were a bunch of empty bags that looked like they once contained pre-cut vegetables, probably from the supermarket. As I was trying to figure out what was going on, I heard women's voices coming from outside. Oh, if it isn't Brian the dishwasher. You're early today, aren't you? It was Barbara, and there was someone else with her, someone I had never seen before. Just as I was about to ask who the other person was, Karen came rushing in, out of breath, holding a smartphone in one hand. Karen, you're sweating all over. What's got you in such a rush? Who cares about my face? Barbara, what's this about? Karen shoved her phone towards Barbara. Barbara took the phone without even changing her expression and began reading aloud. A review on our website. I was surprised because the dishes looked nothing like the pictures I saw before, even though I chose the chef's choice course. That's what it says. What happened? I didn't hear anything about this. And who's that with you? Oh, it's just something I've been thinking about for a while, and I tried it out yesterday. The vegetables are pre-cut, and the rest were bought in bulk to save costs. The taste can be managed with dressing. The main part of the dish is carving, and this is someone who's famous for carving. The woman Barbara finally introduced briefly met my eyes. Carving is a technique where vegetables are cut into flower-like shapes. It's totally different from decorative slicing. It's practically art. But how could that be the main dish? Karen looked even more confused than I was. You serve that as the restaurant's dish. Have you forgotten what this restaurant stands for? Organic vegetables. The vegetables you used for carving were bulk bought, weren't they? And carving is beautiful, sure, but it's totally different from our philosophy of serving whole, fresh vegetables. It might have been the first time I'd ever seen she raise her voice this much, but Barbara remained calm and now pointed her phone at Karen. Vegetable-based dishes are old news. No one cares whether it's organic or pre-cut. That's not what matters anymore. This is the reality. Look at this. The phone showed a search of the restaurant's name on a photo-sharing app. Karen took the phone and stared at it for a moment. Picture perfect for social media. Super cute. Took so many photos. Can't wait to go back. As Karen quietly read aloud, Barbara sneered. What matters now is how eye-catching and Instagram-worthy the food is. That's what the world really cares about. Take the day to think it over. With that, Barbara took back her phone, and the two of them left. Karen barely moved before sitting down in a chair nearby, her head hanging low. But still, this just doesn't make sense. There was still time before everyone else arrived. I made some coffee and walked over to Karen. Are you okay? Yay, thank you. After a brief silence, Karen looked up at the ceiling, closed her eyes for a moment, and started to speak. The first time I met Barbara was when she was still a college student studying agriculture. It was during the summer break, and I was helping out at my family's farm. Barbara was so impressed with our organic vegetables at the farmer's market that she contacted us, asking if she could do a farm internship. She ended up staying with us for about half a month. I remember her being so moved by Mom's vegetable soup when she first tried it. We talked a lot about our dreams and eventually about what kind of future we could create together. We wanted to spread organic vegetables everywhere. First, open a restaurant, then grow our own crops. At that point, Karen adjusted her seat and lowered her gaze as if reminiscing about the past. We worked hard to make organic vegetables a part of everyday life, simple but delicious meals that honored traditional farming methods, while also giving them a fresh twist for restaurant dining. Barbara had a real talent for bringing a splash of elegance and color to a restaurant centered entirely on organic produce. I thought what our restaurant stood for, what it meant to us, would never change between us. But now, suddenly, Karen seemed to remember something and looked at me. I'm sorry, I'm rambling about the past. We should be thinking about the future now. No matter what happens, I'm sticking with you, Karen. When I said that, she looked surprised, but then she smiled and started sipping her coffee. The day I first met Karen might not have been all that special to her, but to me, it was like she saved my life. It was a night about a year ago, and I was sitting on a bench in a park near this cafe. Just a month before that, I had lost my job. Slowly, I stopped tasting my food. Then eventually, I lost all motivation to eat. That's how I ended up in that park. I had meant to sit down, but I ended up collapsing on my side. That's when Karen happened to walk by. I remember only one thing, seeing her face illuminated by the street lamp in the dark, thinking, wow, she's beautiful. She took one look at my face, asked me how I was, and then before I knew it, she had my arm over her shoulder, practically dragging me to some building. It looked like a restaurant, but it was still under construction. Paint cans were scattered around, even though there was nothing left in my stomach. Just the sight of anything related to food made me feel sick. Sorry to keep you waiting. Are you okay? Can you hold this glass? I thought something gentle on your stomach would be best, so I made you a smoothie. It's got carrots, apples, honey, and a little lemon, all blended together with the skin. It's great for recovery. Here, try it. I might have blurted out that I was hungry without even realizing it. I had tried these energy drinks before, but my body always rejected them. But for some reason, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to drink it or not. In the end, I took a sip. It was delicious, like it soaked into my body. The lemon, though subtle, really brought out the sweetness. The carrots tasted rich and sweet. Before I knew it, I had finished it all. As I sat there, still in a daze, she brought me some food. I know it's another drink, but this is going to be one of the main dishes when the restaurant opens. It's hot, so take your time. With a smile, she walked away. The dish was a vegetable soup, but it wasn't just any soup. There were whole carrots and potatoes in it. The vegetables were so soft that I could easily cut them with a fork, and they had a rich flavor that paired perfectly with the broth. It seemed that the seasoning was mainly salt and pepper. The soup was meant to highlight the taste of the vegetables themselves. So I'm really happy you understood that. It seemed that I had been voicing my thoughts aloud as I ate. According to her, These vegetables were organic and grown at her family farm, and this place was soon to open as an organic vegetable restaurant. We want to make organic vegetables something that's not just special, but a part of everyday life. We want to spread the word, reducing environmental impact, enjoying the taste of organic veggies, and of course, seeing smiles like yours. Before I knew it, I had finished the entire meal, despite my earlier reluctance, and I realized I was smiling back at Karen as she shared her dream. Wait, so you got fired, and you hadn't eaten anything until you collapsed? Yes. It's the first time I've ever felt this happy and satisfied just from vegetables. So that means the vegetables were delicious. Right, yes. All right. Work for us. I'm the owner, Karen Moore. Yes, what? And that's how I started working at the restaurant. It wasn't just that the meal had saved my life. I felt like Karen had reminded me of something I'd forgotten about myself. So I decided to start over from scratch, and she hired me part-time. I made up my mind to stay by her side. Brian, aren't you having coffee? Oh, no. It was almost time for the other staff to start arriving. We agreed to return to normal, as yesterday had been an exception. Karen and I had talked about it. It was a bit of a forceful approach, but we felt it was our only option. Yet, something was still bothering me. That day, we received many inquiries asking whether we were still doing the carving service, and I was busy handling them. Karen dealt with most of them, but Barbara hadn't shown up since the morning. The staff, who I had expected to be on edge again today, were instead calmly going about their work, and soon we reached closing time. Karen and I exchanged a few words of relief, having made it through the day, but within a few hours, we were plunged into a situation far worse than we could have imagined. The next day, I arrived at work early again. There were still unresolved issues from the previous day, but today we had a rare booking from a group of customers. It had been reserved a month in advance, so we should have been prepared, but no one else had arrived yet. It wasn't unusual, but I couldn't shake the bad feeling. But eventually, everyone arrived at their usual time. I felt relieved, thinking I had been overthinking it, and I began preparations, but no one joined me. In fact, they hadn't even changed into their uniforms and were just hanging around the kitchen. Just as I was about to say something, Karen came in with some supplies and called out to everyone, "Huh? It's time to start. Is something going on?" Karen, sounding confused, addressed them, but they just gave her a faint smirk. "It's not our problem anymore." "Oh yo, we've got a group today, right? What time was that again?" "Don't care, so I forgot." Just as I realized my worst fears were coming true and was about to confront them, she appeared. "Has everyone said goodbye to their old place yet?" Barbara, what do you mean?" It was rare for me to question anything, so when I did, Barbara seemed a little surprised, but there was a look on her face, like she couldn't help but find it amusing. "Seems like country folk and dishwashers aren't the sharpest, are they? Listen up, everyone. You're all going to be working at a new place. My new place. A place that's not stuffed with self-satisfaction, but actually fits what people want today. I've tested it all here, and it's located where younger crowds hang out." "A test? You mean what happened the other day?" "Exactly. It just proved my point. I get caught up in some country dream nonsense, but now I see things clearly. No way am I going to babysit some small-town kids who can't make anything worth tasting." As she said this, the others started throwing their aprons down in unison. "Everyone, you used to complain about Barbara's constant nagging, right? Why are you following her now?" "Well, if she's offering a better location and higher pay, who wouldn't go?" So she'd been winning them over behind the scenes. They'd only been listening to her because they knew they were going to quit. The pieces finally clicked together. But it was too late. "Why, Barbara?" Karen mumbled, looking devastated, and Barbara shot a cruel look down at her. "Why would anyone want to stick around with a hypocrite like you? Let's go." Oh, and to today's customers, just say, "We're off digging up potatoes in the country. Please wait for us. Goodbye." With that, her words seemed to be the signal, and the staff, smirking, began filing out of the kitchen one by one. As person after person left, the kitchen became deserted, leaving just Karen and me behind. Karen collapsed to the floor, and the tomato she was holding rolled across the ground. "Still, why?" she muttered. Her gaze remained fixed on the floor. "I can't do this alone. Today's customers, they helped fund the restaurant." Barbara knew that. "It's all over." Hearing the sorrow in her voice, I felt ashamed for even hesitating. I'd promised to follow her dream. I picked up the tomato and helped Karen to her feet. "I'll make it." "What? The menu is set, right? Are those tomatoes for today's dishes?" "Brian, wait. You're going to make everything, even if it's just veggies." Maybe I should. Ignoring Karen's frantic protests, I checked the fridge, pulled out some bananas, and quickly made 2 smoothies, handing one to her. "Brian, you're pretty handy, huh?" "Karen, it's way too early to give up. Come on, we're going to be busy, so chug down that banana sugar boost." Okay, I didn't even feel like myself, being this upbeat. But we had no choice but to get through this together. And I needed Karen to keep smiling. There are 6 guests. It's a private event today, so I picked these special tomatoes this morning. Although one of them can't eat tomatoes. Got it. Then we'll use apples for them. It's a salad, after all. These apples are from Washington State, a rare variety. And for the main dish, that carrot soup, right? Yes, they've loved it since we opened. Understood. I'll adjust the pace of cooking while watching how things go. Now I'll get started with the preparations. Karen still looked a bit uneasy, but she quickly began preparing the dining hall with swift movements. I looked at the recipe once again. The boiling time, the amount of salt, everything was meticulously detailed. It was clear that a lot of trial and error had gone into making sure the vegetables would taste as delicious as possible for the grand opening. I couldn't let all this effort go to waste today. Following the recipe closely, I began preparing the ingredients and made a few subtle tweaks for seasoning. Before I knew it, the reservation time had arrived. I heard the sound of cars pulling up, and the lively chatter of voices filled the restaurant. This was it. Karen, who had come to pick up the appetizers, had a wide-eyed look but quickly snapped back into focus, and the dinner began. The appetizers, vegetable pottage, and even the tomatoes and apples seemed to be well received. And the main course soup with organic bread was a hit. There were a few new guests, and I heard gasps of surprise. We used carrots that were just the right size to avoid overpowering the dish, adjusting the steaming time and salt just slightly. I couldn't help but smile as I remembered the first time I had tasted it myself. By the time dessert rolled around, Karen's face had relaxed, and she was smiling naturally. As the meal concluded, a man, probably someone who had supported Karen, took her hand and said with a beaming smile, "That was truly delicious. It seems to have gotten even better." At first, I supported this place as a charitable gesture, but now I'm a fan of the restaurant, the vegetables, and of you. I'll be back. Keep it up. Thank you so much. As she received applause from the customers, Karen looked slightly embarrassed but gave me a quick glance. Apparently, she had noticed me peeking in. We shared a secretive fist pump. After seeing off the guests and finishing the cleanup, We finally sat down to enjoy a cup of coffee. It felt almost surreal, as if the stress from this morning had melted away, leaving me in a refreshed state of mind. After a brief pause, Karen leaned in and looked at me. "Brian, thank you so much for today. I couldn't have done any of this alone. And, well, can I ask you something?" It was obvious what she wanted to ask. I figured it was time to share the part of my past I had kept hidden, at least with her. About a year and a half ago, you've heard of that 3-star restaurant that first opened here in the U.S. Right, the one in the hotel where a room costs no less than $500 a night. Yeah, I was the head chef there. I had worked at another restaurant in the hotel, but because I had some experience at the main branch overseas, I was transferred there. Her eyes grew even wider. That expression eased me a little, helping me relax my shoulders. Everything had to be top-notch flavor, service, the whole experience. If something wasn't up to standard, you'd be reassigned or even fired. And I was the one making those calls. I was strict, even with a pinch of salt. I made the staff practice until they could measure the grams consistently. Even how they behaved during breaks was under scrutiny, all to maintain the highest standard. But I closed my eyes, recalling that day. The result was the entire staff went on strike. When the time came, not a single person showed up. I had figured no one would come and started prepping earlier than usual. "Brian." I let out a dry, self-mocking laugh. The staff, in fact, had all shown up. They were watching to see what I would do. They didn't say anything, didn't even try to contact me. I guess they had given up on me after seeing me start the preparations without a word. They went directly to the higher-ups, and I was fired. For the restaurant, losing all the staff was a bigger issue than just keeping it running. After that, honestly, my memories are a blur. I spent all my time wondering what I had done wrong. I began to eat less and less. Is the bread I have now top-notch? The rice? The water? My belief that I had to serve the very best slowly started choking me, and I couldn't escape from it. Eventually, I couldn't eat at all for a few days. And that was when? The day in the park. Yes, I think I finally understood, watching Karen cook here, why I was able to eat her food that day. I was self-centered. I had never thought about the people eating my food. Even though I remembered their names and faces, I couldn't recall their expressions while they ate. That day, you made that meal to make me smile, thinking about me. It was really delicious. Today, I gave it my all, but I could never make a dish like that. Karen suddenly stood up, interrupting me. "What are you talking about? You just said it yourself. You gave it your all today. You made the best dishes for this restaurant. For me, who's now left all alone. You even added a little extra touch to make the food better, didn't you? That's a dish made to see the smile of the person eating it, Karen." I carefully chose my words and asked, hesitantly, "Did I manage to make them smile?" At that moment, Karen's expression brightened, almost glowing. She grasped my hands with both of hers and nodded firmly, several times. That gesture held more encouragement than any words could have conveyed. Suddenly, I felt something cold on my cheek. When I touched it with my fingers, I realized it was a tear. Without even noticing, my emotions had overflowed. Embarrassment and relief mixed together as I stared directly into Karen's eyes. "Brian." Her voice was gentle, but filled with resolve. "I know Barbara and everyone else is gone, but I still don't want to give up on my dream." Her words made my heart race. "Could you help me? Just a little more, that's all I ask." She paused for a moment and took a deep breath. "Until you find your own path." Her words warmed my chest. She was truly thinking about me, about my future. What are you talking about? My voice trembled, but I responded firmly. No matter what happens, I'll follow your dream. For a moment, a tear glimmered in her eyes upon hearing my words, but she quickly suppressed it and stared at me with a look full of determination. Then she gripped my hands even tighter. That warmth communicated an unspoken sense of commitment and trust. For a while, we just looked at each other without saying anything. In that silence, there was a mutual trust and a shared hope for the future. From that day on, Karen and I began preparing for the restaurant's reopening together. First, we made it reservation only. While we had accepted reservations before, we went fully reservation-based to ensure that with just one person in the kitchen and one in the dining area, we could still serve delicious food and spend quality time with our customers. In addition to that, we decided to close the restaurant outside of lunch hours and turn it into a takeout shop. Along with selling vegetables, we primarily offered smoothies and gelato. In the evening, we began selling limited quantities of vegetable-based takeout meals. By using the parts of the vegetables not used in the lunch or takeout meals for smoothies, we reduced waste even further. We were able to offer affordable prices and spend more time with our customers. The food was well received as soon as we started selling it, which also helped boost our revenue. I even found myself working the takeout counter at times, seeing the customers' expressions, discussing the food with them rather than just giving mechanical explanations. All of that brought about a change within me. Brian, you look like you're having fun. Do I? Maybe it's because the sales have exceeded expectations. That could be it. But anyway, let's start the meeting. Once we had the restaurant's operations in place, we moved on to the next step. This step involved Karen's original motivation and dream for starting the restaurant, to make organic vegetables a part of everyday life. But the issue of price loomed large. Growing vegetables without pesticides takes time and effort, which drives up the cost. Making organic produce still seemed like something special. Karen, almost like a character in a comic, held her head in frustration. This vicious cycle is the problem. Yes, even if we put in the effort to grow them, it's meaningless if they don't sell. No one will want to grow them without stable buyers. It's got to be the restaurant, right? So on our next day off, we headed to Karen's family home. We decided to have a discussion and first create a model case. If we could transition to farming and establish a track record that showed stable income, it would be easier to negotiate with other farmers in the future. Her house was about an hour away by car, and the vastness of the farm honestly took me by surprise. They could harvest fresh vegetables all year round, and it seems they were experimenting with various varieties. The tomatoes Karen brought the other day were a premium variety grown right here. They were particular about organic farming and fertilizers, something that had been passed down from previous generations. The more I listened, the more I realized that Karen had truly grown up in this environment. As we enjoyed the meal, we talked to her family about our plans for the future. And knowing Karen's dream, her parents were surprisingly quick to offer their full support. We were given the opportunity to expand the fields used for organic farming, and the vegetables grown there would be prioritized for our restaurant and the travel plaza. Since this was to create a model case, even though we were family, we had to make sure everything was done under a proper contract to give it meaning. However, seeing Karen speak so passionately, I couldn't help but notice how happy her parents seemed. As we were leaving, her mother said something that I'll never forget. Brian, Karen's dream may seem like a far-off fantasy for most farmers, but we think it's a wonderful dream. Please continue to support her. Farming is a business that works on a yearly scale. Trying something new is always a huge challenge. Karen and I, determined not to rush things, reaffirmed our commitment to give everything we had to the tasks at hand. The days passed quickly, filled with activity. We worked tirelessly to improve the restaurant services, brainstorm menus that would truly highlight the flavor of seasonal and organic vegetables, and foster connections with other farmers. Though we barely had any time off, and I'd be lying if I said we never got tired. Neither of us was alone anymore. We were always there for each other. When you have someone moving forward in the same direction with you, it's amazing how much brighter the future looks. I realized that for the first time. Brian, I really appreciate having you around when we're dealing with contracts. When it's just me, I tend to get too passionate, and I lose my cool. She said this suddenly one evening after we closed the restaurant. Why do you say that? I think that passion is important too. You're always so polite when you speak. Brian, is that because of your previous job? Well, yes, I guess it's something that's become second nature. But maybe we balance each other out perfectly. I'll always be here as your reliable partner. I was just speaking my mind, but Karen stared at me for a moment, then muttered, "Oh, come on," and went off to make some coffee. 3 months passed. Our reservations for today are all set. No allergies, and no changes to the menu. I stood in the kitchen early in the morning, waiting for the vegetables to arrive, brewing 2 cups of coffee. When we first made the restaurant reservation only, I was honestly a bit anxious, but many of our customers would immediately book their next visit after their first. Being highly rated in a famous restaurant review magazine also helped. Our restaurant had become known nationwide as a place you couldn't get a reservation at for months in advance. Good morning. It smells great today. Can I have some coffee? Good morning. Please, go ahead. This is the coffee beans we got from local production the other day. Right. It's good in the morning, but I want to serve it after meals too. Recently, we've been spending this morning time together, talking things over. Even with her busy schedule, Karen always had a smile in the morning. But today, her smile seemed even brighter than usual. Brian, it looks like we're going to secure the funding. We can expand the restaurant now. That's amazing. If we stop being reservation only, more people can come and enjoy. Once again, we were taking a step closer to our dream. She fell silent for a moment, still smiling. Then she gently held my hand. Karen, if you hadn't been there, I would have given up that day when everyone left. I can never thank you enough. Thank you. What are you talking about? This is just the beginning. Yeah, let's keep moving forward together. Of course. I heard a car outside, and as Karen rushed off, I followed her, feeling my face heat up. Whenever she looks at me or touches me lately, I've been getting nervous. Shaking off these thoughts, I hurried outside too. She had already taken care of most of the main steps for the grand reopening. She's an impressive owner. The pre-announcements, stopping reservations during renovations, explaining to her contracted farmers, and even hiring new staff. Everything was already in progress. That day, Barbara had sneered and insulted Karen. But how wrong she was. Karen is always looking ahead and supporting those around her. Someday, even Barbara will realize how amazing she is. Even during the renovation, we kept working. We got permission for street vending nearby and continued selling takeout products. Finally, the big day arrived. Our new restaurant was now twice the size, and we started offering a vegetable buffet during weekday lunches. The hall and kitchen staff were all new members. We took everyone to Karen's family farm, where they could experience the organic vegetables and learn about them hands-on. We held tasting sessions and study meetings leading up to the grand reopening. It felt like everything we'd been working for was coming to fruition, as we attracted a group of enthusiastic, driven people. Their hard work paid off from day one of the reopening. The customers' feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Even the staff were thrilled to be able to answer questions. And I felt a deep sense of gratitude for not giving up walking this path with Karen. But about a month later, we had an unexpected visitor. During the busy lunch hour, word spread from the kitchen that a customer was demanding to see the owner as soon as they sat down. I had a bad feeling, and as soon as lunch ended, I headed straight to the office. Sure enough, it was Barbara. I had suspected as much. Rumor had it that Barbara had betrayed Karen and opened a new restaurant. Initially, it caused some buzz, but with a lack of variety in the menu and dishes that were focused only on visual appeal, she hadn't been able to build a loyal customer base, and her business was reportedly struggling. When Barbara noticed me, she smiled and called out, "Oh, Brian the dishwasher. Long time no see. You should be grateful you got promoted to chef, thanks to me. By the way, Karen, did you use the tomatoes I sent as a grand reopening gift? Since everyone was here, I used the tomatoes for the smoothie." Thanks, Barbara. During the training session, we had all studied tomatoes, but it was the first time I heard that those tomatoes came from Barbara. Oh my, you must be making a fortune if you're just feeding them to family like that. I always respected Karen's sense as a businesswoman. Karen said nothing. In the heavy atmosphere, Barbara's tone suddenly shifted. Then she spoke. "Hey, why don't we work together again?" Karen seemed surprised for a moment, but quickly returned to her serious expression and responded, "Why, Karen? It's not good to hold on to things forever. This store has grown, and its name has become well known. Surely, you're not still talking about organic vegetables, right? This is the moment this store should explode on social media and online. The attention it could get is unbelievable. Even if you don't get it, it's fine. I can make it happen. If we don't make money now, when will we? It's just a novelty. People are only excited because it's new. Your silly, self-satisfying ideals are just getting in the way. We should cash in big now, before the trend dies. And then when the time comes, we'll withdraw and start something new again. That way, we'll become part of the wealthy elite overnight. Come on, just leave it all to me." Barbara, eyes wide, rattled off her words at a rapid pace. When she said, "Let's work together again," it wasn't about the future they once dreamed of. It was clearly just about making money. I glanced at Karen. Karen had her eyes closed. Then she opened them. I guess I was a fool to expect anything more. Sure, money is necessary, but that's not what I want to grow. When you sent those tomatoes, I kind of understood. You were always into the meanings of flowers, and you taught me a lot about vegetables, too. The flower of a tomato symbolizes perfection achieved. And what you sent was tomatoes for bulk buying. It was your way of saying it's impossible to promote organic vegetables anymore, wasn't it? We're not on the same page anymore. Then, Karen spoke clearly and firmly to Barbara. "Please leave." Barbara stood up so abruptly that she almost knocked over her chair, glaring directly at Karen. "Oh, I see. I'm so mad at my younger self. It was a huge mistake to get to know someone as naive as you. Listen, only kids are allowed to dream. Once you're an adult, money is everything. If you don't get that, you're just a foolish egotist. You should hit rock bottom again and regret your choices." Spewing hateful words, she stormed out. Karen remained silent, but after a deep sigh, she looked at me. Her slightly sad smile contrasted with a deep sigh, which, to me, felt like she was trying to mask the pain of parting ways with an old friend. I'll dream with you. Thank you. For Karen, this was likely a turning point, but I still couldn't shake the lingering unease from Barbara's parting words. A few days later, an offer came to the store. It was from a magazine that had previously given us a glowing review. They wanted to feature the restaurant in a section run by a famous critic, although they probably used a pen name. This critic was well known in the food industry, someone said to have the power to dictate current trends. His straightforward opinions were popular, and he didn't even show his face. He was the kind of critic who gave either 0 or 100, making it a gamble for anyone who received an offer from him. Of course, Karen understood that. She stared at the email for a long time, but after taking a sip of her coffee, she quickly sent a reply of acceptance. You have to be confident if you're aiming for 100. That's because it's this restaurant, right? As expected, Brian. We laughed together, deciding to take this high-risk offer. The day of the offer finally arrived. We had been asked to provide our usual service, so I hadn't told the staff about today. I simply offered them all banana smoothies to encourage everyone to give their best today. 5 minutes before the reservation, the door opened, and 2 men walked in. I couldn't tell which one was the critic, but as soon as I peeked from the kitchen, my mind went blank. No, it was a phrase I couldn't shake from my head. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't forget those words. You ruined my future. Don't ever forget that for the rest of your life. If they find out I'm working here, my reputation will surely be destroyed. I need to tell everyone I'm leaving as soon as possible, but there isn't anyone ready to take over the main course yet. If I leave, it could cause chaos. My mind was swirling, unable to make sense of anything, when Karen's voice reached my ears. Brian, what's wrong? The main course is almost ready. Karen, today. No, from now on, I won't be able to stay involved with this restaurant. What? I struggled to explain with my clouded mind. The young man, his name is Daniel. He used to work under me at my previous restaurant. You know him, but that means he was full of talent and effort, so much passion. As for me, well, you know the story. That day, I let him season the soup for the first time. The sous chef double-checked it, but when I tasted it later, it was just slightly different from usual. I decided it was a mistake with the salt and made him apologize to every table. The next day, he handed in his resignation. He waited for me to be alone in the kitchen, folded his apron, and said with a look of hatred, "You ruined my future. Don't ever forget that for the rest of your life." In the end, I left that place too, but those words have haunted me ever since. Just thinking about it makes my chest tight. Karen gently placed her hand on my back. It wasn't entirely his fault. I had been informed that the usual salt was out of stock and would be replaced, but I didn't follow up, and he was the first one to use it. Most people wouldn't notice such a small difference, but even after he quit, I told myself it was because of his lack of professionalism. I convinced myself that he wasn't cut out for the top level. That's unforgivable. I turned to face Karen. I don't deserve to cook for him. If anyone found out I was here, it would be a disaster for the restaurant. I'm sorry, but I can't. Then Karen let go of my back, grabbed my hands, and held them close to her chest. She whispered to me, "You are the chef of this restaurant now. Don't worry, I've seen all the smiles your dishes have created. That's who Brian is today. If anyone says something, we'll apologize together. So let's serve him." Her words and smile made memories of my time here with Karen and our customers rush into my mind. I wasn't trying to prove anything about myself. I just needed to serve the best dish I could as the chef of this restaurant. And I finally switched my mindset. Chef, could you taste this for me? Is now a good time? I'm going, boss. Yes, go ahead. As usual, I worked with the team, and we put together the final main dish. After the last order was served and those two customers were having their coffee, Karen was finally called over. I watched from the kitchen, but all I could catch was a simple greeting. But then, the man who had been frowning the whole time started speaking in a louder voice. So you're the owner, huh? I won't say the food is bad, but you know what they say about enjoying food with your eyes. This restaurant doesn't get it. Honestly, just having vegetables. That's just not working in today's world. Do you think anyone would want to take a picture of this? You need to research your younger clientele. It's dull, unsatisfying, poor-looking, overpriced for just vegetables. I could go on, but hey, it'll make for an easy article. Let's go get some meat after this. I heard the words, but it sounded less like a review and more like complaints. He was nitpicking and making sure everyone in the restaurant could hear him. I see. That's all, Karen said, waiting for the other man to speak. He stayed silent, but then turned to Karen. I'd like to speak with the chef. What? Karen glanced at the kitchen, and one of the staff gave her the okay sign. I clasped my hands together, gave him a nod from the edge of the kitchen, and took several deep breaths while waiting for Karen to come. It wasn't just him I had to face, but everyone from that time. I had to be ready for whatever he might say. I also wanted to step in and help Karen after she had taken all those snide comments alone. Brian. Yes, I'm coming. Karen and I approached the table, and I greeted them. The man who had been bad-mouthing the place looked like he had something to say to me too, but Daniel stayed silent, and the man seemed to catch the hint. Daniel took a sip of water and looked at me. His eyes showed that he recognized me completely from the way the two interacted. It was clear Daniel was the critic. What would he say? Maybe nothing at all. But if anything were to harm the restaurant, I was prepared to apologize deeply or do whatever was necessary. He placed a glass down and finally spoke. So it really is Brian. Yes. All I could manage was that reply and a small nod. Please, look up. Actually, I had heard from someone we used to work with that they saw someone who looked like you here. But to think you were working at an organic restaurant, I couldn't believe it. But after tasting this main dish, I knew it had to be you. Back when I first started, I would often drink the leftover soup, trying to learn from your techniques. As he reminisced about the past, I couldn't look at him directly. That's when Karen stepped in. Brian has always been giving his all for this restaurant, for the customers. She tried to defend me, but he smiled and raised his hand to stop her. I understand. Brian was always dedicated to delivering the best food and ambience for the customers. But that intensity, none of us, myself included, could keep up with it. After what happened, I left a restaurant in anger, filled with resentment. Daniel took a sip of water and then turned his whole body toward me. For the first time, I really looked at his face. Brian, I've never stopped thinking about you. I couldn't escape the culinary world, but I often wondered, what happened to you? Did you quit cooking? Did you leave it all behind? He stood up, his shoulders shaking, as he continued speaking in broken sentences. I'm so sorry for what I said back then. I wanted you to regret it, and I said such terrible things. But even if you were going to quit, I shouldn't have done that. In the end, I left scars on myself too. Thank you for continuing to cook, Chef Daniel. Not only do you bring out the full potential of organic vegetables, but you also create depth, color, and a sense of fulfillment. You truly are an amazing chef. Tears welled up in his eyes as he looked at me. I was overwhelmed with a mix of gratitude and guilt, and I started crying even more than he did. I was immature. I felt useless, hit rock bottom. And it wasn't until then that I finally realized what truly mattered. I couldn't see it before. Now I don't even know what to say to you, Chef. Daniel gripped my hand tightly and said, everything you wanted to say, you've put into this meal. Thank you. Thank you. Karen stood by, smiling. At that moment, I finally felt like I could move forward. But just then, a loud slam echoed through the restaurant as someone banged on the table. What the hell, Daniel? What's with a change of heart? We were supposed to give this place a bad review. Remember, we were getting a huge payoff. And now you go off and start praising it with some sentimental story about the past. What are you gonna do about this? Another man, who had been silent until now, shouted angrily. Daniel let go of my hand and began to explain the truth. What he said is true. Back when I was just starting as a critic, I'd take jobs to make a name for myself. And recently, that same person reached out with an offer I couldn't refuse. The offer was what he just said. Yes, I was paid to give this restaurant the lowest possible rating. In the dark silence, the man stood up and patted Daniel on the shoulder. Hey, there's still time. Just say something now. Oh, and you should mention the chef too. The former head chef, with his abuse of authority. Tasteless food at ridiculous prices. Right, stop it already. Daniel's shout echoed through the restaurant. Without hesitation, he grabbed the man's smartphone, where he had been taking notes, and shoved it into the glass of water on the table. What the hell are you doing? I'm done with this. Finally, I feel like I can move forward. I'll never write lies for money again. The man, clearly rattled by the serious look in Daniel's eyes, retrieved his phone and stormed out. Hey, your life's over, you know that. He spat out those words as he left. Are you sure about this? Daniel turned to me with a smile as he prepared to leave. Coming from a man who's climbed back from rock bottom. What are you worried about? I'll write an honest review of this place with my own words. Don't worry. Even though it wasn't the best time, there was something I needed to tell Daniel as he took this new step forward. It's a bit late, but back then, I also respected how hardworking you were. I always thought we'd work together. That's why I trust you. It's all in your hands now. Daniel nodded with a smile, then left the restaurant with a few final words. After that, we served our customers coffee on the house, and the chaotic lunch service finally came to an end. Karen and I sat across from each other in the office. When I first heard the word commission, I had a bad feeling. Brian too. Yay, I figured. The words Daniel said before leaving were about the person who made this whole request. Can't believe it was Barbara. There's no point in dwelling on it now. Let's leave the article to Daniel. Despite the seriousness of the situation, there was a smile on Karen's face. What's so funny? Brian, the worry is gone from your face. I'm glad. Haha. I let out an awkward laugh, and Karen stood up, coming right up to my face. But those tear marks are still very visible. With that, she gently pulled out a handkerchief and softly wiped my cheeks. I felt an odd mix of embarrassment and comfort, but her face was so close that I couldn't open my eyes. My face was probably flushed red, hiding any remaining tear marks. 1 month later, the magazine we had dreaded was finally published. The moment I held it in my hands, my chest tightened. Flipping through the pages, as expected, our restaurant was rated at the lowest rank. The words that man had spat out that day were printed there, in cold hard text. Every time I read it, I felt a weight in my stomach. Normally, this would be the end for the restaurant. Reputation would plummet. Customers would stop coming, and eventually, we'd be forced to close. That image kept flashing in my mind. But we still had hope. Brian had stepped up. He went straight to the weekly magazine and revealed everything in an exclusive interview. He exposed the corruption behind the article, the money exchanged under the table, and shockingly, he even admitted that he had been involved in similar schemes in the past. His confession shook the industry. Social media was flooded with praise for his courageous actions. At the end of the interview, Brian concluded with these words: "I've posted my true thoughts on my social media. From now on, I'll share information with pride and respect. As a former chef, I'm truly sorry for all the trouble I've caused." When I read those words, tears welled up in my eyes. Brian was finally acknowledging his mistakes and taking a new step forward. I glanced over at Karen, and she, too, had tears in her eyes. We nodded to each other in silence and held each other's hands tightly. After the whole incident, we were flooded with interview requests from various media outlets, but we stood firm on our stance. "Come visit the restaurant and see for yourself," we would say. In the end, we received glowing reviews from different publications, and even that magazine ended up issuing a public apology. Even now, after the dust has settled, our restaurant remains packed with customers, and we are truly grateful. As for Barbara's place, it quietly shut down just a few days ago. I found out when one of the staff members, who had left in the mass walkout, came to our place asking to be rehired. It was a familiar face, someone who used to take their frustrations out on me. I didn't say anything, leaving the decision entirely to Karen. There was a palpable tension in the office as Karen flashed her biggest smile at the person. "All right, let's work together again. Thank you so much." I was surprised at how quickly she decided, but in a way, it was very much like her. However, she didn't forget to mention one last important thing. "Okay, starting tomorrow, you'll be on dishwashing and cleaning the vegetables. Make sure to learn from your seniors. Lunch service is insanely busy." "Wait, dishwashing?" Sure." They looked a little dissatisfied, but by tomorrow, they would realize how hectic and important the job really was. After all, every role here matters. It was about time for lunch service to wrap up, so I made my way back to the kitchen. Just then, the front door opened, and a woman walked in. "Is lunch still being served?" One of the staff was about to explain that service was over, but I stopped them and led the woman to a seat. She looked pale and drained of energy. It was Barbara. I passed Karen in the back and let her know we had a guest before heading into the kitchen. Barbara sat there, staring down, not even touching the water in front of her. "Barbara, you don't look well. Are you eating properly? You know exactly what I did, and yet you're still worried about me. Is it pity or charity?" Her weak attempt at sarcasm only made her appear more hollow. As the two sat in silence, I brought over the food. "I'm sorry, but lunch service is over, so I made you something with what we had left. Is that okay?" Barbara stared at the dish for a moment. "It's fine." She only said those two words, but as I was about to leave, she stopped me. "Chef, can I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course." Barbara, as the steam from the food rose in front of her, slowly began to open up. "I was born into a farming family. You could say it was pretty old-fashioned. Our house and fields were separate, so we'd all pile into the truck in the morning and head out together. I'd go straight from there to school, still covered in dirt, and then come home to help with packing up the produce. Day after day, it was the same routine, and I started to get sick of it. My parents said it was fine as long as I got into the agricultural department at college, so I went. Honestly, I just wanted to get away from home, and anything would have been fine. I went into research, determined never to return to that house again. She let out a deep breath as she picked up her fork and slowly broke apart the vegetables floating in the soup. I had made up my mind, but I got stuck on that assignment. So I signed up for that farming experience just for some content ideas. Oh, if only I could go back and tell my younger self. If I hadn't gone to that farm, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have even thought about chasing a new dream. She glanced briefly at Karen, then took a bite of the vegetables. Her voice trembled as she spoke to Karen. I wish I hadn't thought it was so delicious. Barbara. Barbara wiped away her tears softly and then turned toward me. Chef, this is the dish I had when I first ate at Karen's house, isn't it? You just had to bring that memory back, didn't you? Yes. I heard that you enjoyed it so much when you visited Karen's family, so I thought I'd make it for you. I see. Karen placed her hands on the table, as if trying to steady herself, then moved closer to Barbara. Hey, Barbara, I still want to. Stop. I can't look at the same future with you anymore. Not with these cloudy eyes. I just can't be with you like this, Karen. Both of them were in tears now. So close, yet somehow, the distance between them felt unbridgeable. I felt helpless, frustrated at my inability to do anything. Then, Barbara lifted her head and took a deep breath. Well, I actually came here today to throw a few sarcastic remarks your way, but after tasting this meal, that's out the window, Karen. Until I can see a clear future again, like I used to. I'll leave you in the hands of this chef here. I'll try again too, so that someday we can stand side by side once more. Lunch is over, right? I don't want to leave anything on the plate, so I'm done talking. With a wave of her hand, Barbara signaled for us to leave the table. Karen and I stepped back from our seats. Barbara, still wiping her eyes from time to time, finished her meal completely and then left the restaurant. After that, Barbara returned to her family's farm. With her knowledge of soil and fertilizers that she had studied in college, and all the techniques she had picked up while visiting different farms for this restaurant, she convinced her family to start organic farming. It wouldn't be long before Barbara's farm became so popular that customers eagerly awaited the announcement of delivery days. 6 months later, Karen and I stood together in front of a vast piece of land. We had finally acquired it, a place that would become our treasure. This place is so beautiful, it's hard to believe it was just left abandoned like this. Well, that's exactly why we were able to get it at such a great price. Let's just say it was waiting for us until our finances fell into place. That sounds really wonderful. I gently took Karen's hand, and she softly squeezed mine back. This land, which used to be a field, was still barren, with nothing growing yet. But this is where our new dream begins. We'll likely fail many times before we can produce organic vegetables good enough to sell, and it may take years. By that time, organic vegetables might be even more ingrained in our daily lives. However many years it takes, I'll still be with you. I really have lived my life with vegetables. It's almost funny when I think about it. It turned out that way for me too. But a life spent with someone else. I think that's pretty great. As we talked while looking out at the land, Karen suddenly let go of my hand and stepped in front of me. Then, for some reason, she started to question me, a little angrily. Brian, hey, I've been meaning to ask you this for a while now. But what's up with all these ambiguous things you say? You're making me misunderstand. What do you mean by misunderstanding? You know, stuff like however many years, or always together, those things. It was rare to see Karen talking so passionately about something other than vegetables, with her face flushed red, and I couldn't help but find her adorable, as always. Should I stop saying things like that, Karen? Just stop it. Her answer didn't come in words. Feeling her warmth close to me, I quietly closed my eyes. A few years from now, we'll likely be standing in the same spot, the landscape transformed into a vibrant display of colors, talking about our new future. Maybe those helping hands are always there, everywhere. But whether they belong to angels or devils, we may never know. When you finally realize what they are, you must decide, do you keep holding on, or do you let go? In the end, the choice is always in your own hands.
There's no present for poor people like you. Just go back home. We couldn't understand the words coming out of my sister-in-law, Caitlin's, mouth. Caitlin has been voicing her complaints up until now. It seems she hid the gift meant for her daughter, Mary. The reason she had been in the next room was apparently to hide the gift at the last minute. Caitlin snatched the present Mary had prepared right out of her hands with force. After inspecting the present from various angles, she threw it on the floor. Such a meager thing can't possibly be a gift. Anyone who would give such a thing isn't family. Go back home. It appears she was displeased because it wasn't the brand she specified. On the floor, earrings that Mary had chosen one by one were scattered. The children who participated in the gift exchange picked them up, but Mary, frozen, seemed unable to comprehend what was happening right in front of her. Gradually realizing the situation, tears quickly filled Mary's eyes. She's just a 13-year-old middle school student. It's no wonder she ended up crying. Watching Mary like this, Caitlin had a triumphant look on her face. Arriving late, Zella also entered the room and laughed at Mary, who was in tears. Taking advantage of this moment, Caitlin continued to hurl insults at us. However, that didn't last long. I am Michelle. While working a part-time job, I raise my only daughter, Mary, and am about to enter my 50s. Mary was born when I was 35, and she turns 13 this year. I have a husband named Kendrick, who is 1 year older than me, but Mary is not Kendrick's biological daughter. Before marrying Kendrick, I was married to another man. Mary is the daughter from that previous marriage. Blessed with a loving daughter, the three of us lived happily, but that life did not last long. My former husband died in a traffic accident. At that time, Mary was just 3 years old. She barely remembers her biological father. I was engulfed in grief immediately after his death, but I couldn't afford to lose Mary as well. As a single mother, I resolved to raise Mary. To do that, I needed money. Since then, I've spent my days juggling childcare and part-time jobs. I met Kendrick at work, 2 years after making my decision in the spring. Being a single mother, I sometimes inconvenienced my colleagues with tasks like picking up from kindergarten. Kendrick supported me attentively during those times. Attracted to his kindness, we began dating. Initially, Mary was nervous around Kendrick, her first encounter with an adult male. He understood her nervousness and approached her not as a dad, but as a friend. Mary must have felt Kendrick's kindness. Gradually, Mary warmed up to him. I remember vividly how delighted she looked when she started calling Kendrick Dad. While dating, Kendrick revealed to me that he was infertile. I consider Mary my real daughter. Even though Michelle and I can't have children together, I still want to live with Michelle and Mary. For Kendrick, the inability to have children must have been a significant insecurity. However, the fact that he showered Mary with love was unchanged. When Mary fell ill, he rushed to take care of her. For me, Kendrick's infertility was never a reason to part ways. Seeing him treat Mary as his own daughter, I had no choice but to stay with him. He was not only indulgent but also strict when necessary. It was clear he genuinely cared for Mary. We had a serious talk and decided to cherish the happiness we had right in front of us. After opening up, Kendrick became even more caring towards Mary and me. We started living together, and when Mary was 8, we got married. Kendrick's father, John, warmly welcomed our marriage. John adores Mary as if she were his blood-related granddaughter. Mary has also grown fond of John, and we have managed to build a good relationship with him. However, Kendrick's mother, Zella, saw me as a woman who seduced her son for money. Whenever we visited Kendrick's parents, she blamed me for everything. Whether it was missing dishes or a speck of dust, it was always my fault. The list goes on. And it wasn't just Zella who berated me. Kendrick has an older sister named Caitlin, who is 2 years older than him. Caitlin is married and a working mother of 3 daughters, ranging from high school to middle school age. The nieces are all calm in nature, much like their uncle Alex. Since she lived about a 10-minute walk from her in-laws, she often brought the kids over to play. We only go back for summer vacations or Christmas vacations since it takes us about 3 hours by car using the highway. So, we do see Caitlin and her family from time to time. Caitlin is the type who isn't satisfied unless she's number one. She harasses me along with Zella, and she always has to show off her latest designer bag. We're not that well off, so this is the best we can do. My family lives in Chicago, and we're currently in Washington, which is quite a distance away. We don't communicate often, so financial support is not something we can count on. I work a part-time job too, but I don't have the luxury to afford branded goods. Knowing this, she still flaunts it. Caitlin works a part-time job as well, but I guess Alex makes a good income. You can't use off-the-rack clothes and bags. You need to have proper branded ones. Today's outfit cost me about $10,000 in total. Caitlin's children were wearing off-the-rack clothes, so it seems she's satisfied as long as she can dress herself up. I'd rather spend money on making Mary happier than on myself. Our ways of thinking are quite different. I've been getting sick of Zella and Caitlin. It seems Mary doesn't have a very good impression of Zella and Caitlin either. I'm watching videos in my room, and she hides whenever she sees them. I feel sorry for involving Mary in adult conflicts, even though she's still a child. Both of them always have something to say, don't they? I'm sorry. It's always been like this since the past. Remember, Dad and I are always on Michelle's side. Especially John, it seems he has never thought much of Caitlin's bragging since the past. Whenever something happens, John steps in to mediate. Kendrick also seems to have no fond memories of Caitlin from when they were younger, like when she would eat his favorite snacks. Both have grown up, and since Kendrick moved out, he hasn't visited home much. So, there hasn't been much interaction until recently. After marrying me, he would only show up to meet his grandchildren. I hardly ever see him talking with Caitlin. However, Mary and Caitlin's children get along well. It would be a shame to separate the children because of adult circumstances. With the cooperation of Kendrick and John, Caitlin and I have maintained a reasonable distance. Fortunately, she hasn't come to our house so far. If I just endure it a few times a year when we meet, everything will be fine. Once Mary grows up, we'll probably see each other less. Just a little more patience. I'm okay. I reassure Kendrick and myself with these words. One day, when the town began to light up with Christmas decorations, we received a message about a Christmas party at the in-laws. John, being considerate, invited Mary. It seems Caitlin is the organizer, but John is also helping out. Naturally, Mary wants to go. Mary is only 13 years old. Sending her alone on a 3-hour one-way trip to her grandparents, when she's not even used to taking the school bus, is too risky. On the day of the party, it's Christmas vacation, and both Kendrick and I are off work. We decided to take Mary to the in-laws for the party. Christmas parties usually mean exchanging gifts. We can't afford anything too expensive, but we decided to prepare a gift. Upon hearing this, Caitlin went ahead and specified the gift herself. A gift list was sent along with the invitation. Looking through it, there were items like luxury brand necklaces and cosmetics, things you wouldn't think children would use. Each and every item was over $500. What does she think children's gift exchanges are? I've never seen Caitlin's children wearing branded items. So, this list is probably not what the children want, but what she wants for herself. We ignored the instructions and let Mary choose the gift herself. Mary couldn't decide in one shopping trip, so we went multiple times to buy the present. Each time, the options increased, and I watched Mary happily making her choices. Eventually, she settled on earrings and an eraser, totaling $30 for the gift. Mary was counting down the days to the Christmas party. It's a special occasion, after all. To avoid any disputes, we decided to be as careful as possible. Then the day arrived. Caitlin's children had stayed over the night before to decorate. The luxurious Christmas cake and roast turkey were apparently handmade by John, who used to be a chef. They wanted the children to enjoy themselves, so the adults tried not to gather too much in the room. The in-laws' house has a dining room next to the living room, with a small room at the back that used to be Kendrick's childhood room. While the Christmas party was happening in the living room, the adults were swapping drinks in the dining room. Alex couldn't attend because he was busy with work. You could hear the lively voices from the living room in the dining area. The adults were making small talk, sounding cheerful. Caitlin probably didn't want to see me. She was in the room when there were luxurious meals, but now she's nowhere to be found. I didn't want to confront her either, so it worked out. As the party was winding down, it was time for the gift exchange. "I want you to take my present," Mary said, holding out the gifts to her cousins with both hands. They seemed happy to accept the presents. It was Caitlin who had made the list of gifts, not her daughters. It's a gift meant for children. Letting the actual children choose was the right decision. The exchange was done in an old-fashioned way, with music playing, and whoever had the item when the music stopped would keep it. Caitlin's children were puzzled because there weren't enough presents, even though they had prepared one each. I was roped into searching for the missing present. Half-eaten snacks and toys used for playing were scattered on the floor. It must have gotten lost somewhere. However, searching the room, one gift was still missing. Could it have been accidentally thrown away? Just then, Caitlin, who had been out of sight, walked into the living room. Seeing Mary, Caitlin suddenly started yelling, "There's no present for a poor person. Just go home." We couldn't understand what Caitlin was saying. She was voicing her grievances until now. Apparently, Caitlin had hidden the present meant for Mary. She had been in the next room until now, presumably to hide the gift at the last minute. Caitlin forcefully took the present from Mary's hands. After inspecting the present from various angles, she threw it on the floor. "Such a poor thing can't possibly be a present. Someone who gives this isn't family. Go home." She must have been upset it wasn't the branded item she had specified. Earrings selected by Mary were scattered on the floor. The children were picking them up, but Mary, seemingly unable to comprehend what had happened, froze. Tears began to form in Mary's eyes as she slowly grasped the situation. She's only a 13-year-old middle schooler. It's understandable she would start to cry. Seeing this, Caitlin had a look of triumph. Zella entered the room late and laughed at Mary, who was in tears. Taking advantage of the situation, Caitlin continued to berate us. But it didn't last long. "You're the one who should leave, Caitlin." John rushed in from the dining room next door. While wiping Mary's tears, he started yelling at Caitlin. John is usually mild-mannered, and I've never seen him angry or irritated. But now, he was shouting with a look that could scare the devil himself. Not just Caitlin, but Zella, who had been mocking along with her, was silenced. "Dad, did you hear everything?" I was the only one looking for the present with the children. John is not good with alcohol, so they must have thought he wasn't watching. John and Kendrick had seen everything. In fact, only Zella and Caitlin were drinking alcohol. John and Kendrick were drinking non-alcoholic beer. While I was scrambling to find the present, Kendrick had been telling John that Caitlin had demanded brand name items. Even John thought that was unacceptable and had been waiting for the right moment. But that wasn't all. Caitlin's children started to comfort Mary. "What are you doing? Poverty is contagious." Caitlin frantically tried to persuade the children to stay away from Mary with a panicked voice. The children ignored Caitlin's persuasion. In a panic, Zella also tried to call the children back. But they all faced Mary, not turning back at all, as if their actions were showing that what the two were doing was wrong. It seemed Caitlin and Zella had thought the children would always be on their side. Seeing the children's actions, Caitlin and Zella were flustered. "When will you stop wanting brand name things? You're just a working mother now." To my surprise, after moving the children to another room, John shared a story from the past. It turns out Caitlin had always had a spending problem. In her student days, Caitlin started working at a girls' bar wanting money to play. Unlike convenience store part-time jobs, the girls' bar paid well. It's understandable for a girl fresh out of high school to get carried away with so much money. Moreover, the job required dressing up in brand name dresses and bags. Caitlin would work at the girls' bar, buy the latest brand name bags, and increase her shifts when she ran out of money. This lifestyle continued for 3 years. However, she quit in her 3rd year of university because John found out she was working at the girls' bar. Caitlin tried to keep working in secret, but she gave up when threatened with being kicked out of the house. John said that was the only time he had ever shouted at Caitlin. After quitting, she worked as a supermarket cashier and eventually became an office worker at a general company, where she met and married Alex, then quit her job. Even after quitting, she couldn't escape the lifestyle of buying brand name items. Alex frequently scolded her for it. "If you can't buy it yourself, it means it's not suitable for you. Don't make others buy it for you." The gifts she demanded from us were all things Caitlin wanted to buy. "What's wrong with that? Isn't that what presents are for?" Caitlin retorted, gasping for breath. "Caitlin, you're living on your part-time income now, right? How can you afford so many brand name items?" I'm just increasing my shifts. I bought everything with my own part-time income." She hesitated a bit, as if hit where it hurts. John didn't miss that hesitation. "Then what's this?" John pulled out his mobile phone and showed us a screen. It displayed the total amount of debt from a private financial institution. "Why do you have this?" "I saw it in Zella's room. There's no better proof than this." Caitlin fell silent and looked down. The atmosphere was no longer that of a Christmas party. That day ended with us being told we were better off leaving. For the children, it probably became a Christmas they'd rather forget. We bought Mary's favorite stuffed animal on the way home and decided to have a family party of our own. 3 months later, John contacted us. Caitlin had gotten a divorce. Alex hadn't known about the debts. He panicked and conducted a personal investigation after learning about them through John. Shockingly, Caitlin had canceled the children's educational insurance and spent all the money on brand name items. Alex couldn't forgive her and chose divorce. Caitlin, taking Zella with her, stormed into Alex's parents' house. However, that backfired, and she was disowned. Since that Christmas, the children had also distanced themselves from Caitlin. Fortunately, they were all over 15 and chose to live with their father, Alex. Caitlin is now facing claims for alimony and child support in the divorce proceedings from Alex. Although the payments are in arrears, Alex isn't struggling with childcare finances because of his earnings. However, raising 3 children alone as a man is quite challenging. He had been busy with work even when he was married, often leaving the house empty. That's why he couldn't attend the Christmas party. Should I help with everyone's studies? I'm currently researching online courses at work, so it would be perfect. Kendrick has always loved children. His nieces were fond of him too, and he would sometimes teach them when they were at his in-laws. He owed it to them for defending Mary. Officially requested by Alex, Kendrick began to occasionally oversee his niece's studies online. Even though it's been half a year since the divorce, I still get snide messages from Caitlin every now and then. On the other hand, Caitlin continued to blame Kendrick and her nieces. I raised them. What ungrateful daughters! I raised them with kindness. They'll surely regret this. Divorce is out of the question. After the divorce, Caitlin apparently returned to her parents' home. Since then, Zella has always sided with Caitlin, no matter what, despite her volatile temper. John began to question Zella's behavior. Zella, who used to scold Caitlin, is now affirming everything. The current Zella would certainly seem odd to anyone. When John started investigating Zella secretly, he found decisive evidence. John asked us to check it out, so we visited his house for the first time since the Christmas party. Kendrick and I had been keeping our distance from his house. Since John regularly visited our home, there was no reason for us to go there. The two always went shopping at the same time. When we arrived, they were out. The living room, once lavishly decorated, now had only John's dishes laid out, giving off a melancholic vibe. Going through them, we found debts listed under John's name. There was no need or reason for John to be in debt. As we finished going through everything, we heard the front door open. They must have seen our shoes. The two rushed into the room in a panic. Why are you two here? Breathing heavily, Caitlin confronted Kendrick. Caitlin, what is this? I don't remember taking out any loans. John calmly separated Caitlin from Kendrick and presented her with the papers. It was the debt details borrowed under John's name because Caitlin could no longer borrow under her own. And isn't this under Zella's name? Not only Caitlin, but Zella had also been borrowing money. It appears Zella had been spending the savings meant for their old age on luxuries with Caitlin. John was a saver, almost considering saving as a hobby. He had accumulated about $600,000 for a peaceful retirement from his savings during his working years. But the two had spent it all in 3 years. Not enough, they repeatedly took out loans, inflating their debt to $730,000. We had no choice. The stress of not paying child support was piling up. Exactly. It's all the fault of the person who divorced us. Don't shift the blame. The responsibility lies with you two for not controlling your desires. Caitlin and Zella continued with their unseemly excuses, blaming Alex, the daughters, John. Where did they get the idea to blame others? John refuted all their arguments with sound reasoning, and finally, the two fell silent. As if to end everything, John presented the divorce papers. Marrying you was the shame of my life. Caitlin is not my daughter. Seeing the divorce papers filled out in John's section, Zella began to apologize frantically. While crying, Zella started a deep apology. Yet, Caitlin just looked on, offering no apology. Zella started urging Caitlin to apologize too, but Caitlin, unwilling to apologize, argued back. With nothing left to say, John left the scene. "What are you doing standing around? Go bring Dad back." After John left, Caitlin began to panic. Everything had been just talk, and she hadn't expected any action. "Now you're trying to ingratiate yourselves with us? After everything you've done? Please, don't involve us anymore. Staying any longer wouldn't do any good." We also left the in-laws' house. That night, while relaxing in the living room, the doorbell rang. It was past 10 p.m. An unreasonable time for a visitor. At the door stood Caitlin. Kendrick said he would handle it, so I watched from the living room. "What do you want at this hour?" "For a brother without seeds, you're awfully cheeky. Just let me in already." Apparently, after we left, Caitlin and Zella had an unprecedented fight. And Caitlin was kicked out of the house. She tried going to Alex's, but was, of course, turned away. Unwilling to spend money on a hotel, she came to our place intending to crash. "This is a joke. Leave now or I'm calling the police. We're family, aren't we? Just let me in already." Ignoring Kendrick's warnings, she continued to cause a scene loudly. Even when warned about disturbing the neighbors, Caitlin only became more agitated. With no sign of her leaving, we did as we said and called the police to have Caitlin removed. "Why should you two be happy? I will never forgive you." As she was being taken away by the police, she spat out those parting words. Kendrick, Alex, and I had all tried to reach out to Caitlin at first. She had destroyed all of that herself. Approaching 50, Caitlin likely won't change her personality now. Having lost money and family, she can't accept that she's reached a point of no return. Later, we received a thank you call from John, along with a report on the two. Apparently, Zella and Caitlin had been blaming each other. Eventually, they became estranged from each other. Both burdened with debts in their own names, they're living in poverty. Zella paid the compensation money for the divorce lawsuit to John immediately, but she didn't have the means to come up with such a large sum instantly. She must have taken on new debts to make the repayment. Fortunately, the debts taken out in John's name could be covered by the compensation money. John has rented a new place and is working as a taxi driver, saving for his retirement. His granddaughters continue to visit him, even after the divorce. Despite everything, they still cherish John, who is filled with gratitude for their affection. And on another Christmas day, at John's new home, Mary and the children exchanged presents. They had chosen themselves. No brand name items, but presents that brought smiles to the children's faces are the best. Do branded goods and large sums of money that are not suitable for you change a person's personality so much? This incident made me rethink the value of money. Mary still spends time happily with her cousins, silently ensuring they don't follow in Caitlin's footsteps. It was the eve of the wedding that brought together my family and my fiancé's family. Suddenly remembering something, I headed back to the apartment I shared with Derek. Just as I was about to knock on the bathroom door, I overheard a conversation between Derek and Lily. "Why is Lily in our bathroom?" There's only one conclusion. Karen, you know, she's great as a housekeeper and money provider. Just a little praise, and she's all ours. She's starved for affection because her parents always favored me. Poor thing. After contacting my future parents-in-law and connecting my mobile phone and TV, I followed the two who headed to the bedroom. Waiting for round 2 to begin, I started a live broadcast. Look, everyone. A man cheating with his fiancé's sister, and a sister who stole her sister's fiancé. Even the animals at the zoo would be amazed by these odd creatures. Derek and Lily looked at me in stunned silence. In my heart, I declared war on Derek and Lily. They both made a complete fool of me. Don't think you can get through tomorrow unscathed. I'm Karen, a 42-year-old office worker. Soon, I was to marry Derek, a colleague from my company. Actually, I divorced 10 years ago because of my previous husband's infidelity and thought I was done with marriage. However, a few years ago, when Derek joined my team at work, I was instantly charmed by his smile. Derek, a leader and a joker, was the complete opposite of me, who was only serious and not good at speaking. Lacking self-confidence, I never thought I was good enough for Derek. So I was quite surprised when he asked me out. Even after accepting his proposal, I was half happy and half anxious. I thought it might be prenuptial doubt, but my intuition was right. Soon after, an unbelievable incident occurred. I have an older sister, Lily, by 2 years. Sisters are often compared in appearance, but it was especially bad in our case. Right from birth, I've been told various things. My dad, who had wanted a boy, said when he found out his second child was also a girl. Don't need 2 girls. I can't understand why my mom told me that. Although Dad wanted a son, he adored Lily, who looked just like our beautiful mom. And Mom, even at my birthday parties, would dress up Lily more than me. Lily captivated not just our parents but everyone around her. And people would compare us and then sympathize with me. Karen is plain. She doesn't look like her mom. Poor thing, Lily is the only cute one. If only you were born more beautiful. Our grandma, who raised us in place of our self-employed parents, treated us sisters equally. So, somehow, I managed to grow up straight and honest. But when Grandma passed away, I was left without an ally in the house. If Lily broke something and acted cute to apologize, she was forgiven. In my case, I was scolded without my opinion being heard. When Lily lied, Dad gently admonished her upon realizing the lie. Such lies are easy to see through. However, when I, at 5 years old, told a lie, I was furiously berated. Karen is the worst kind of person. Liars are not welcome in our home. Leave right now. I wasn't actually thrown out, but for a while, I lived in fear of being abandoned by Dad. Meanwhile, the mom, dressing us in matching outfits, would always sigh. Lily looks so cute, why doesn't it suit Karen? Given such treatment by our parents, it's no wonder Lily grew up spoiled. By 5th grade, Lily and I had a master-servant relationship. I want ice cream. Go buy it now. I'll go after I finish studying. I don't care about that. Hurry up. Even if I appealed to our parents, I was made out to be the bad guy. Just go buy her some ice cream. Listen to Lily. Moreover, Lily only showed her true colors in front of me, hiding them in front of our parents, classmates, and teachers. So, no one but me knew Lily was a liar, cunning, and spoiled. Sometimes, Lily would look at me with pity and a nasty smile. Poor Karen. You're compared in everything you do to me. Born from the same parents, I'm a princess, and you're like a slave. Is it fun living like that? I was so irritated, but instead of talking back, I worked hard in my studies and sports to please our parents. My grades were always top-notch. I even received awards in track and field. But Dad, far from being happy, showered me with sarcasm. It's disgraceful to be a capable woman. If only Karen were as cute as Lily. When I was fed up with people fawning over Lily, finally, a friend appeared. One day in 7th grade, Lily's best friend Alice came to our house, furious. Alice had caught Lily flirting with her boyfriend at school, and when she confronted her, Lily was unapologetic. She said, "He suits me better. He likes me more than Alice, sorry." I didn't know she was that terrible. We're through. Crying and angry, all I could do was apologize to Alice. "I'm sorry for the awful thing Lily did. It's terrible after everything what you did for her. There's no need for you to apologize. If Lily's mean to you, tell me. I'm on your side, Karen." That incident started our text exchanges with Alice. Even after going to different schools, we remained close friends, meeting for lunch on weekends. Desperate to escape my suffocating home, I attended a university with a dormitory on a scholarship. Finally free from Lily, I enjoyed my college life and landed a job at a big company. A few years later, I married a colleague. But within a year, for some unknown reason, he declared he wanted a divorce. He never clearly stated why, and we parted ways, leaving me baffled. Back then, I thought I was done with marriage, but after 10 years, I felt lonely being single. Growing up discriminated against by my parents, I longed to create a happy family. I hoped to remarry if I met the right person, and then I met Derek. When I brought Derek to my parents' home, they, caring about appearances, took a liking to Derek, who had such a top-tier titles. A graduate of a famous university, working at a big company. While they dismissed me, not ladylike despite my equal status, they praised Derek. My parents liked Derek, and I felt relieved until Lily returned. Over 40, still single, working part-time. Lily lived at our parents' home without contributing financially. I heard she usually went out on Friday nights. So we scheduled the family meeting for Friday, but just tonight, she returned home early. Probably hearing about tonight's plan from our parents, she hurried back from her part-time job to charm Derek. "Nice to meet you. I'm Karen's sister, Lily." Lily greeted with a sweet voice, and Derek was instantly captivated. I'm used to such reactions. But Derek did more than just stare at Lily, he started talking enthusiastically. "Wow. Lily, you're really beautiful. Karen, why didn't you tell me sooner? I would have wanted to meet someone this beautiful much earlier." "Really? I thought you both were too busy. Normally, you wouldn't go out of your way to introduce them, right?" Comparing my tense face with Lily, Derek excitedly said. "But Karen, you don't look anything like her. It's hard to believe you're sisters. Were you adopted or something?" Everyone else burst into loud laughter. "Lily, you look like an actress." "Thank you." "Derek, you're handsome too." Derek blushed from ear to ear at Lily's flattery. "Nah, not really. Lily, you have such grace and shine. Marrying Karen means having such a beauty in the family. I have to introduce her to my friends. They'll be so envious." Derek continued talking, getting carried away. "Lily's skin is so clear and beautiful. Karen looks older in comparison. Drinking while gazing at a beauty, it's the best." "Derek, you have quite an eye." "Derek, please take good care of Lily." I was dumbfounded by my parents' remarks. It was one thing for Derek to behave like this, but my parents' reaction was strange. Normally, a fiancé praising Lily over me would upset anyone. Yet, there they were, smiling joyfully. "Derek, what you said earlier was awful. Praising Lily right in front of me." On the way home in the car, I complained, and Derek looked astonished. "But it's true that Lily is beautiful, right?" "Yes, but..." "Karen, you know I'm honest. I have to say what I think. Keeping it inside doesn't sit well with me." I frowned at Derek's unapologetic attitude. "I know that, but there's a limit." "What's wrong? You don't like secrets, do you? Just stop praising Lily in front of me. It makes me feel bad." "Okay, I got it." But Derek seemed to forget my request soon enough. Even after the wedding date was set, he kept bringing up Lily, comparing her to me, and praising her incessantly. "If you like Lily so much, why don't you marry her? I blurted out in frustration, and Derek hurriedly explained. Sorry. It's just that Lily is my type. But I want to marry Karen. I was drawn to the homely Karen. He said, laughing. Karen is good at cooking and cleaning. I'm terrible at those things, so it's really a lifesaver. After getting engaged, Derek, who had been living alone, moved into my apartment. We're getting married soon, so let's live together, he insisted, starting our cohabitation forcefully. Though he paid half the rent and living expenses, Derek didn't help with the chores at all, leaving everything to me. I also worked full-time, with overtime and weekend shifts. Yet when I came home tired, Derek, lounging on the sofa, glanced at me while fiddling with his phone. Welcome back. What about dinner? I asked you to do the laundry. Weren't you off today, Derek? Derek feigned ignorance. Did you ask me? Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to relax today too. I'll help out after we're married. We were planning to be a dual-income couple after marriage. But given his attitude, I wondered if he would really help with the housework. Not wanting to argue before the wedding, I didn't push the issue too much. Finally, the night before our wedding, I received a call from Derek's parents, Samantha and Tim. They wanted to have a wedding eve celebration and asked me to bring my family to their house. I was a bit worried. Derek had suddenly become very busy at work a few months ago. Late nights, business trips, weekend work, it was almost always after midnight when he came home. Derek was working either Saturday or Sunday every week. Though we were in different departments, it was still the same company. It wasn't a busy period, so I wondered, was he really that busy? But I couldn't complain since it was work. Fortunately, all the wedding preparations were done. I'm happy about it, but I might have to work late. If that happens, you can start without me. Understood. I'll save Derek's favorite steak, so work without worry. Derek had this conversation on the phone with Samantha the day before. When I told my parents, Dad didn't seem to care much. Derek's dad and I both like baseball. I'm looking forward to talking about it. It seemed they just wanted to drink and have fun under the pretext of celebrating their daughter's wedding. Well, it's better if the parents get along. I'm not fond of my parents, but Derek's parents seem nice, so I was relieved they got along. On the eve of the wedding, I got a text from Derek. He had sudden overtime. When I told Derek's parents, my mom remembered something. Come to think of it, Lily said her part-time job got extended and she'd be late too. It was suspicious. Usually, she'd leave work immediately, even if someone got sick. Soon, my parents and Tim and Samantha started drinking and chatting happily around the lavish meal. After setting aside a portion for Derek, I was eating my favorite dish when I suddenly remembered something important. I had completely forgotten to revise the letter I was to read to my parents. I didn't want to write it because my resentment was greater than my gratitude. But Mom insisted on including that part, so I had no choice. When I started writing, it inevitably turned into complaints about how my parents favored Lily over me. Reading it tomorrow would dampen the mood. I had to force myself to add some words of gratitude. I decided to make the revisions before drinking. Quietly leaving Derek's parents' house, I headed back to the apartment I shared with Derek. Looking up at our apartment from the parking lot, I saw the bathroom light on. Derek must be taking a shower before coming to his parents. Thinking this, I went upstairs. Not wanting to startle him, I decided to announce my arrival. As I walked down the hallway, I was about to knock on the bathroom door when I heard Derek's voice. It's going to be lonely. Can't see Lily during the honeymoon. I feel the same, Derek. I almost cried out. Why was Lily in our shower room? With Derek. There was only one conclusion. They were in that kind of relationship. I was about to collapse in shock, but I braced myself against the wall. Derek laughed and said, Karen is excellent as a housekeeper and money provider. She does all the housework perfectly and earns about the same as me. Simple-minded, so she follows whatever I say with just a little praise. She's starved for affection because her parents always favored me. Poor thing. Their mocking tone made my body tremble with anger. If only she were a bit prettier, I'd be nicer to her. She's improved a lot since the old days.
That much? Seriously? How ugly was she?
Lily answered with a sweet voice, to Derek laughing. I was embarrassed to introduce her to my friends. But one day, I changed my mind. She's my foil, so I decided to endure it. I see. But she's smart, you know. Too smart. She's good at her job. Well, that's fine. Otherwise, she'd have no value. Oh, right. Hearing Lily and Derek's laughter, anger surged from the pit of my stomach. It's not that I'm smart, I worked hard. I put effort into my job. And they didn't understand that, even though we were together? In my heart, I declared war on Derek and Lily. They both made a complete fool of me. Don't think you can get through tomorrow unscathed. After a while, I could hear Lily's voice, which I didn't want to hear, leaking into the hallway. When I tried the bathroom door, fortunately, it was unlocked. I quietly entered and found Derek and Lily's mobile phones. I searched for evidence of their affair and sent it to my phone. Additionally, I recorded the sound of their affair and texted it to certain people. When their voices stopped, I crept out into the hallway and hid behind a potted plant, holding my breath. Lily, still in Derek's arms, came out of the bathroom, laughing joyously. Karen is probably having fun right now, not knowing I'm in Derek's arms. What a fool.
An affair on the eve of the wedding is the best. It's addictive. Hey, I won't forgive you if you cheat with another woman.
Don't be silly. I love only Lily. Their happy exchange irritated me, but I restrained myself from running out of the house and waited for them to enter the bedroom. I quietly followed and pressed my ear against the door. It seemed Derek and Lily had started round two. Their voices echoed down the hallway. Holding back my urge to cover my ears, I waited for a response from my parents, and finally, the phone rang. Karen, what was that all about? Just as you heard. Lily and Derek were having an affair. On speakerphone, Tim and Samantha's screams could be heard in the background. Lily would never do such a thing. That's right. It must be Karen's misunderstanding. Come back home. Mom and Dad said dismissively in the background. I was irritated but instantly calmed down. Ah, here we go again. To my parents, Lily is always the sweet and lovely angel, no matter her age. It's always me who's wrong. I sighed and clenched my fist. Until now, I didn't argue to avoid conflict, but this time, I couldn't stay silent. With quiet anger, I told Dad. So what are you saying? That I'm lying? Dad seemed surprised by my confrontation. I didn't say that.
Karen, how can you talk to Dad like that?
Just connect it to the TV already. Karen, I've connected it. It seemed Samantha had taken action in place of my hesitant parents. Do I just wait now? Yes, thank you. I'll start the live broadcast now. I turned off the phone and faced the microphone. Let's intrude on the affair of Derek Evans and Lily Johnson. I opened the bedroom door and pointed my phone's camera at the bed. The two, caught in the act, froze in shock. Look, everyone. A man cheating with the bride's sister on the eve of the wedding. And the sister who stole her sister's fiancé. Creatures that would even astonish the animals in the zoo. Regaining their senses, they scrambled for the bedsheet. Lily snatched it, leaving Derek to fall off the bed and hurriedly cover himself with a pillow.
It's not what it looks like. You see, Derek was nervous about the wedding tomorrow, so I was comforting him.
Lily's strained excuse almost made me laugh. At times like this, Lily's head seems completely empty. How stupid. You think that excuse will work?
Stop it. Lily did nothing wrong.
Derek argued back at me. Defending your affair partner? Are you saying it's your fault?
It's Karen's fault. If Karen were prettier, I wouldn't have cheated.
I was too appalled to say anything. Really? By the way, Derek, did you know? Lily didn't fall for you. She went after you because you were my fiancé. She'll probably discard you once she's bored. Derek laughed after a moment of surprise. You're just jealous. We're not getting married, but we're seriously in love. I kindly informed Derek. Lily has always liked taking what belongs to others. She seduces friends' boyfriends, gets bored, and dumps them. She's been doing this so often that she's been noticed for her nasty character and now has no friends left. Right, Alice? Alice, who had entered the bedroom, nodded in agreement with my words. Lily, long time no see. Stealing your sister's fiancé, how admirable of you. At Alice's sarcastic comment, Lily pursed her lips. Stop misrepresenting it. I just happened to fall for my sister's fiancé. Twice in a row isn't just coincidence. Lily looked unsettled by my comment. Let me borrow this for a sec. I took Lily's mobile phone from the bathroom, found a certain image, and showed it to Derek, who averted his eyes. The image showed my ex-husband and Lily wrapped in a bedsheet, cuddling on a bed.
Lily, were you also involved with Karen's ex-husband?
It's Karen and Alice's fault for not being cute. Lily defiantly responded. Karen, Alice, and even my friends, they lack charm as women. That's why men always choose me when I seduce them. They have no taste in men. Lily said confidently, and I nodded deeply. You have a point. I should have chosen someone more sincere. I threw a glance at Derek, who awkwardly looked away. Come on, Karen. See? The main cause is your faces. Lily laughed irritably, carried away by her own words. Being beautiful, both men and women treat me kindly. Even my parents listen to me. My part-time manager overlooks my fake illnesses. Life's a breeze. I pressed my forehead and muttered. Poor person. Huh? Do you know why Derek chose me as his wife and not Lily? Because you met at work, right? Lily's expression said, what's the big deal? After meeting, Derek could have broken off our engagement and married Lily. Dad and Mom are annoying, and it's a hassle, right, Derek? I scoffed.
Oh, even my phone.
I'll borrow this. I took Derek's phone, showed it to Lily, and her smile faded. Lily, you were really beautiful. Exactly my type. It's a pity you're not smart. A dumb mistress is fine, but a clueless, housework-inept wife is a no-go. At 44, still part-time, quitting a job after 3 days because it's too hard is a bit much. Wanting to be a housewife and be supported by a husband but loving high brands and being a big spender, that's too much. Derek turned pale. What appeared on the screen was a text Derek had sent to a friend. Lily's expression changed to one of anger.
Derek, who are you talking to like that? You should be happy just to be with a beauty like me.
No, Lily is beautiful, but there are many people who are just pretty.
Fine, let's break up. I've had enough of you, Derek.
Lily said defiantly. I still have Dad and Mom. They treat me like a princess. They're always there, serving me every day. I hope they stay healthy and continue cooking for me. Wow. So you use your parents as housekeepers? Classic Lily. Derek, you were planning to make Karen do all the housework after marrying her, weren't you? That's a wife's duty. Derek and Lily began to argue. Making a working wife do all the housework is outdated thinking. No wonder you're both getting married for the first time at this age.
I don't need to hear that from the unmarried Lily.
As Derek and Lily started fighting seriously, I intervened. Lily, are you sure you want to say all that? What do you mean? The camera is still rolling. The live broadcast isn't over. What? Lily turned ashen. I bet there's a big fuss at Derek's house right now. Everyone knows about your affair and your true nature, Lily, including Dad and Mom.
What should I do? What should I do, Karen?
Lily, more panicked than I'd ever seen, clung to me. Huh? I don't know. You did this to yourself. Clean up your own mess, I said firmly, shaking off Lily's arm and turned to Derek.
I can't live in a room where Derek and Lily had an affair.
It's too dirty.
I'm canceling the lease, so get out. And pay the cancellation fee for the wedding venue.
After saying what I needed to, I stopped the camera. Resisting the urge to throw the engagement and wedding rings in Derek's face, I placed them on the bedside table. Leaving Derek, covering his crotch with a pillow and looking awkward, and a near tearful Lily behind, I left the room with Alice. But it wasn't over yet. After parting with Alice and returning to Derek's house, another problem awaited. I thought my parents would be disappointed in Lily's true nature, but they were surprisingly cheerful. The first thing they said to me, tired as I was this.
Karen, you're breaking off your engagement with Derek, right?
Of course.
Oh, good.
What? Good. I was stunned, and then my parents turned to Tim and Samantha. Please marry Lily instead of Karen. That'll solve everything. What? We can't do that. Karen and Derek are breaking up, aren't they? Tim and Samantha looked confused, but my parents were smiling. Don't worry. They'll surely get along if they marry. Karen agrees, right? It's sad to break up two people in love. We want them to be happy. I held my head, feeling a headache coming on. This made no sense. We've already reserved the wedding venue. We just have to change the bride's name. We'll just say we mixed up the sisters' names. No problem. My parents talked excitedly, and I was completely dumbfounded.
Didn't you see the live broadcast? Lily stole my fiancé. It's Karen's fault for not captivating Derek,
Dad said, and Mom nodded next to him.
It's Karen's fault for not being born beautiful. It's like an old drama, getting your fiancé stolen on the eve of the wedding.
Mom laughed and burst out, and Dad couldn't help but join in. I stared at my parents, laughing at my misfortune. They would forgive Lily no matter what. There was no love for me. Samantha's voice broke through my shock. Are you really her mother? When I looked up, Tim and Samantha were confronting my parents with disbelief.
This time, Derek betrayed Karen, and we feel sorry for that. But let me say this, isn't it wrong to side with Lily? As parents, it's natural to comfort Karen. Defending Lily and laughing at Karen, you're not qualified to be parents. Be quiet. Leave us alone.
My mom retorted.
It must have been your son who seduced Lily. She's not the kind of person to steal someone's boyfriend.
That's right.
Even if he hadn't met Lily, he would have cheated with another woman.
Tim and Samantha were stunned.
To know what your daughter did and still defend her, what an unreasonable family. We didn't expect this from you. Please leave, it's unpleasant. That's our line. Poor Lily can't marry her true love. It can't be helped. Derek wasn't right for her. Lily is a wonderful person, she'll find someone else soon.
My parents, looking somber, left without cleaning up after the meal, packing their things in a hurry. Feeling awkward, I took the dishes used by my parents and me to the kitchen and wiped the table. As I was gathering my things to leave, Tim and Samantha came to the entrance to apologize.
We're sorry on behalf of Derek. We didn't mean to cause you pain. We don't expect forgiveness, but we're truly sorry.
Their tone was sincerely apologetic. There must be someone better for Karen than Derek. Please, find someone good and be happy. Thank you. I left Derek's house. I found an apartment close to work and moved there. I arranged for a moving company to transfer the belongings from the apartment I shared with Derek. I waited for Derek to move his things before canceling the lease. I had no intention of seeing Derek again, so I hired a lawyer for our jointly acquired assets. I thought Derek would agree smoothly, but he suddenly became reluctant. Apparently, the cancellation fees for the wedding venue and honeymoon were higher than expected, and he had used up his savings. Trying to placate me and avoid loss, he suggested,
Everything we bought together should be mine. It was just a half-year affair, and we didn't have kids. Let's forget it.
Ignoring Derek's persistent texts, he finally got angry.
You earn a decent salary, trying to take my property? That's manipulative. That's why you were dumped.
Derek's persistent behavior led me to block his contact and send his texts to his colleagues at his company. The texts spread from Derek's colleagues to other departments. Derek's serious image crumbled, and he lost credibility. Feeling uncomfortable at his company, Derek resigned and joined a small enterprise. Surprisingly, it was an illegal business offering low wages. Even after taking on debt, Derek eventually agreed to a settlement in which I came out with an advantage in our jointly acquired assets. It seems he's unable to leave this illegal company. Cut off from Tim and Samantha, unable to borrow money, he struggled with debt repayment. When I demanded settlement money from Lily for both affairs, she angrily called.
I can't pay such money. We're family, it should be free. That's right, making Lily pay is absurd. Is money all Karen thinks about? That's why Derek left her.
Hearing my parents causing a commotion over the phone, I felt sick. So, I blocked the contacts of all three of them. Later, I heard from relatives that my parents and Lily, after sharing the story, faced severe criticism and were treated as outcasts by other relatives. Pressured by a lawyer, Lily, who had taken on debt to pay me, increased her part-time work. However, one of her jobs was managed by a relative. Branded as the sister who stole her sister's fiancé, she struggled to find another job and endured daily work. Despite my shattered dream of a happy family, I was now prepared to sever ties with my parents and Lily. Despite the unpleasant experiences of my childhood, I had always harbored some hope. Karen is as important as Lily. Karen is our precious daughter. I had hoped to hear such words from my parents someday, but this incident led me to give up completely. However, I now felt as if a fog had lifted. Perhaps because I felt clearer, my work improved, and I was recently promoted to department head. Additionally, at a party for singles that I attended with Alice, I met a wonderful man. He too had issues with his parents, and we both shared a desire to build a warm family. I'm not sure if I'll remarry, but I'm thinking of dating this kind man for a while.
You're the famous photographer. Are you shooting today?
The woman in front of me is staring at me excitedly. We met on the beach during clamming season, and she seems to know that I'm a photographer. Despite her family of 3 playing in the sand, she listens intently to what I have to say. It's a poignant reminder of my early days as a rookie, when people didn't believe I was a photographer and I barely got any assignments. When I tell her that I'm here for a photo shoot, she eagerly volunteers to be the subject. But could you please not show my child's face? She says this, pointing to a cute little girl. The girl, about 2 or 3 years old, looks at us with her big, adorable eyes wide open. Of course. And what about Dad? When I ask, the father looks pale, glancing around uncertainly and giving vague replies. I guess that's understandable. After all, the dad building a sandcastle with the girl is my husband. My name is Katie. I'm a 30-year-old freelance photographer. For work, I'm often called to school events and weddings in the neighborhood. I capture moments of smiles and friendship, sharing them through my photos. It's not just about taking pictures, but about capturing people's memories and emotions, sharing their happiness. Capturing these joyous moments in people's lives is my job and my passion. But my life's shutter stopped in an instant due to a certain event. My husband, Galton, was a busy businessman. He was involved in the development of leisure facilities and tourist destinations, traveling all over the country. We couldn't spend much time together because of our busy schedules, but the time we did have was special. Even if it was just a little while, the time and smiles with him were what kept me going. I had no intention of quitting my photography.
We'll build our careers while supporting each other.
We promised and got married. That's when I started looking for ways to work from home instead of being out and about for shoots. First, I posted landscape and permitted portraits on social media as part of my portfolio. By showcasing my work in virtual galleries like online photo exhibitions, not only publishers and peers in photography noticed me, but also a wider general audience. This led to a rapid increase in followers. Thanks to social media, I was able to do live streams, talking about my photography and even making some money from it. I would share my photos while explaining the stories and techniques behind them. Communicating through photography was fun and fulfilling. I balanced outdoor shooting with my social media presence, steadily growing my follower base. Galton was still constantly on business trips. Inevitably, I spent a lot of time with my in-laws, who thankfully took an interest in my social media activities. As I taught them how to use smartphones and social media, we grew closer, and they often tuned into my photos and live streams. Both are wonderful people, and even when Galton was away, I didn't feel lonely and enjoyed fulfilling days. However, there was a significant void in our lives. We couldn't have children. Despite numerous tests, we were unable to conceive. We both wanted kids, so years into our marriage without a child put a strain on us. Initially supportive, Galton grew tired of the financial burden and frequent clinic visits, and I could feel us drifting apart. His involvement in a major project, requiring constant travel, didn't help. His interest shifted from our elusive treatment to his challenging work. He cared less about our childlessness, talking more about work instead. I tried to understand his busyness, but we were emotionally distant.
Yesterday, I had a meeting with a client, and it looks like a new project is starting. I'll be away overnight for a while starting next week.
As he unpacked dirty shirts from his large suitcase, Galton told me this. He had just gotten back, but I quickly started the laundry. Galton wouldn't bother to clean or buy new shirts otherwise.
It's faster and less risky this way,
he would say, but I wanted to save where I could.
So, about the hospital.
That's impossible.
You know I have to be there in person, right?
I can't leave work, so let's skip it next week. I sighed quietly, so Galton wouldn't hear. I had made an appointment, but there was nothing I could do if he was traveling. Galton's actions caused trouble for his company, and it was painful to see the work he was once praised for being overshadowed by his personal life. I never wanted to be a hindrance.
But, you know, as busy as I am, it's tough. Katie, you go out for shoots too, right? Let's both keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, Galton.
I swallowed my words as he casually dismissed the topic. Maybe Galton no longer wanted children. But I was too afraid to ask. Should I accept this silently, or should I bring it up, even indirectly? The uncertainty was unsettling. I was adept at capturing people's joy and sorrow through my camera. Yet now, I was living each day unaware of my own emotions. Slowly, I felt trapped within the frame of my own photographs. One day, a fine white envelope with the logo of a famous resort company arrived at the house. It didn't seem like just any direct mail, so I hastily opened it. Inside was a voucher for a stay at a luxury hotel by the sea. Apparently for 3 people. Why was this sent to me? Feeling a stir in my heart, I quickly went to Galton.
Galton, this arrived. Do you know anything about it?
Of course, I wasn't accusing him of anything. I was careful not to sound mean, just asking naturally. Galton stopped reading his newspaper and looked at me. His expression was blank, but his gaze hardened slightly, almost glaring. I had never been looked at that way before and couldn't hide the sinking feeling in my chest.
That's for a colleague whose plans didn't work out, so it was sent to us. It's nothing strange, so can I have it back?
He reached out his hand. Without saying a word, I handed him the envelope with the tickets, and he snatched it away. But when he saw the address, he looked back at me with clear annoyance.
This is addressed to me. Don't open my stuff without asking.
I was surprised and hurriedly apologized. However, it wasn't unusual for direct mail to come to my busy salesman husband. We usually disposed of the ones that arrived at home, so I was taken aback by his reaction.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was direct mail. I was just checking. You should have asked me since I'm here today.
Galton took the envelope to his room, and I couldn't ask any more about the tickets. Although I didn't fully understand why he needed to get tickets for a colleague, I had to accept his explanation. But then, half a month later, something else happened. In July, just before Independence Day, and when we had a memorial service planned at my in-laws,
I've got a long business trip,
he suddenly said. I was initially speechless. A business trip? In my work, I often get requests from families or for landscape photography. But I had taken time off for the memorial service. Freelancers and even regular companies usually have Independence Day off. And so did Galton's company, at least in the past. Galton shrugged slightly and forced a smile.
It just came up suddenly. I have to work without a break. So, can you attend the memorial service for me?
I knew he took pride in his work and had been serious about his career even before our marriage. But increasingly, I found myself doubting the reasons for his work and trips. In the end, he left for work, pulling his favorite suitcase. The news reached my in-laws just in time, and while they were angry at his attitude, they made sure I didn't feel uncomfortable.
We're sorry you cleared your schedule for this. When I see Galton next, I'll give him a stern talking to,
said my MIL, Helen. All I could do was give a vague smile. I was supposed to stay a few days after the service. Galton was their only child, and they didn't want me to leave too soon, so I ended up staying as originally planned. I brought my camera and took pictures of my in-laws doing housework, living their daily life, and even landscapes I don't usually focus on. I occupied my time with shooting plans, but part of me felt the absence of Galton, who should have been there. I decided to go to the beach one station away, both for work and a change of scenery. During the spring and summer holidays, the beach is lively with clam digging, and ideal family groups enjoy their time on the sands. Some people are under colorful beach umbrellas, enjoying walks and sunbathing. I walked along the beach with my camera. Suddenly, I stopped at the sound of a familiar voice, coming from a family building a sandcastle. I was glad I wasn't holding my camera. I would have dropped it at the sight. In the circle was Galton. He was with a young woman and a toddler, building a sandcastle together. They looked like a happy family, gathering white sand and shells. I couldn't believe my eyes. But the hotel voucher that had arrived at home, Galton's frequent long business trips, his indifference, it all piled up like sand before me. It would have been an ideal family scene for a photo assignment. But I couldn't believe my husband was there. The child between them looked about 2 or 3 years old. About the time I started feeling Galton drifting away. He had another family. Though I wasn't sure if the child was his, my instincts as a wife told me there was a blood connection. I felt as if a glass frame inside me had shattered mercilessly. The frame was supposed to hold our happy, smiling faces as a couple. I steeled myself and approached. Not Galton, but the woman. She was wearing a large straw hat and looked surprised when I suddenly spoke to her. I forced a smile and apologized for the abrupt approach. Then, I handed her my business card, explaining that I was a freelance photographer. The card only had my professional name, but it also included my social media contact. She looked at the card with interest, then started searching for me on her mobile phone. In the background, Galton, clearly aware of me, was frozen, staring at a spot on the beach.
Would you mind if I take a photo of your family? I sometimes do live streams showing photography tips.
What? I know Katie. I follow you.
You post mobile photography tips, right?
She was excited, not knowing my relation to Galton, happy to be approached by a minor celebrity on social media. I was surprised she was a follower, but she was eager, even for a live stream. I hesitantly asked, and before I could finish, "Of course." She was already excitedly agreeing. I felt guilty, like I was deceiving her, but my goal was to document Galton's other family.
Please teach me some photography tips for moms. Galton, you're okay with it, right?
Galton was caught off guard. Stammering, he tried to avoid looking at me, desperately thinking of an excuse.
We shouldn't, because of the face reveal. I'm a model for brochures, Can you just make sure my child isn't in the frame?
It turned out the other woman, Lisa, was a model I had met through my husband's company's public relations work. Of course, I agreed and adjusted my phone camera to keep the child out of the shot. I quickly set up for a live stream, pretending to teach the mother, with Galton unavoidably in the center of the frame. His forced smile was interpreted positively by viewers, quickly spreading as cute nervous dad. After the stream, I thanked them and left. But within minutes, Galton caught up with me, leaving Lisa and the child behind. I asked him bluntly,
"What are you trying to do?"
He remained silent, looking annoyed. He probably felt awkward with Lisa and came to me as an escape. I wonder what his intentions were in stopping me. Finally, he spoke heavily.
"Katie, understand me. What's there to understand without a proper explanation? It's clear enough if you look."
Look, I couldn't help it.
I had a child with her before I could with you.
It's fine.
Lisa's family is wealthy. She doesn't need me to marry her.
Galton confessed, his defiance revealing the truth. It seemed unlikely that a young woman who got pregnant would say something so convenient. Probably, Lisa suspected he was married.
I wanted a child. But you couldn't have one. Lisa is nice, and the kid is cute, like her. But it doesn't mean I hate you or don't want to live with you.
His contradictory words left me holding my aching head. Apparently, he wanted to maintain the status quo.
I won't bother you. This situation is perfect for me.
Isn't this good enough? How could it be? I should have argued back. But I was so overwhelmed I lost my voice. In my silence, he sighed in victory and was about to leave. But someone unexpected arrived. It was my in-laws.
"Galton, who are that woman and child?"
My Fael, Nathan, red-faced, confronted him. Galton flinched at their sudden appearance.
"Why? We saw the live stream notification. Who's the woman and child if you were on a business trip? Skipping a visit home for some unknown woman and a child?"
Without waiting for Nathan, Helen stepped in to defend me, showering Galton with fierce words. I was shocked. They had seen the live stream and realized something was wrong. They were stunned to see Galton as a husband with an unfamiliar woman and had rushed over. Confronted by his parents, Galton had to confess everything about Lisa and the child.
"Ungrateful child."
He received a strong slap from Helen. Nathan glared at Galton with a look so fierce, I thought he might have punched him if Helen hadn't acted first. My in-laws left Galton behind and came to take me away. Following their apologies and strong encouragement, I decided to divorce. After uncovering evidence of Galton's affair with Lisa, his mistress, the matter was initially settled with a compensation agreement. However, as the divorce proceedings and investigations progressed, various facts came to light. Firstly, it was revealed that Lisa indeed knew Galton was married. Considering she agreed to continue the relationship despite being pregnant, it seemed she had prepared herself for being involved with a married man. Her motivation wasn't just financial, she likely wanted to keep Galton as long as possible. However, she genuinely didn't know that I was his wife and, upon realizing she was following me, blocked all my social media accounts. She angrily started posting on various forums, but this only resulted in more sympathy for me, as she publicly exposed herself as the mistress. It caused trouble in her own family, leading to her being nearly kicked out of her home. Desperately, she even tried to move into my former in-laws' house after I left. But they firmly refused her entry. Next, Galton's secrets began to unravel. During the compensation claim investigations, numerous women and men associated with him came to light. It turned out he had multiple affairs during his business trips, involving repeated liaisons with several women, some of whom were engaged or married. I decided to send out the data from that live stream. A little investigation would reveal that I, his lawful wife, was broadcasting, and the people in the frame were his mistress and their child. As a result, women deceived into thinking he was single, and husbands who felt their wives were stolen, were inflamed with anger and confronted Galton. He found himself facing lawsuits from every direction, with no choice but to accept them all. As more revelations about Galton emerged, Lisa, to everyone's surprise, fled with their child. Clearly out of love, she chose to escape her relationship with him. Lisa's social media uproar eventually settled down, and as her accounts disappeared, I decided to let her go. But considering her nature of boasting about affairs on social media, it was unlikely she would just vanish. True to form, Lisa started using an entirely different account. However, her posts playing the tragic heroine were quickly identified, attracting a wave of criticism. She would delete her account when things got tough, only to reappear under a new one, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Abandoned even by Lisa, Galton's last resort was to turn to his in-laws, but they were enraged upon learning of his multiple affairs. Without any apologies and simply pleading for help, his parents decided to sever ties with their son. Following the scandal, Galton was burdened with substantial compensation payments. As the legal proceedings progressed, inquiries from his mistresses and their husbands flooded his company, complicating the situation even further. Moreover, this wasn't the worst outcome. The unprecedented scandal of his affair and child being exposed on social media was disastrous. The fact that the reveal happened during a business trip made the information spread rapidly, and the company's facilities and reviews were flooded with shocked and angry comments. The fallout from the scandal spread internally and externally, diminishing the company's trust. The executives, feeling a crisis, hastily strategized communication plans, consulting with experts due to their lack of experience in handling such situations. Meanwhile, they strictly instructed employees to provide accurate information to quell the chaos. Inquiries and condemnations from inside and outside the company poured in, and Galton's reputation plummeted. He became an outcast at work, completely isolated. Amidst the uncomfortable atmosphere, he was soon asked to resign and had to look for a new job. Originally proficient and successful in sales, he was favored by an older demographic who didn't use social media and quickly found new employment. However, his nature didn't change. Within half a year, he was involved in new scandals, such as pursuing his manager's wife and attempting to charge a shabby motel stay as a business expense. He was fired, joined new companies, and was repeatedly dismissed for causing turmoil in personal relationships. Now, he seems to be perpetually bouncing from job to job within the industry. Meanwhile, I've maintained a relationship with my former in-laws after the divorce. They've been considerate, allowing me to live peacefully. Their support was crucial for me to move on and start anew after ending my relationship with Galton. Following the divorce, I struggled with photographing children, finding it painful. My in-laws, despite being betrayed by their son, strived to present a united front, supporting me. They helped me believe that my relationship with Galton wasn't everything and that I could trust again. One day, I captured a photo of them talking peacefully. I plan to feature this photo in my upcoming online exhibition as the main piece. Although they were quite shy about it, I believe they'll be happy with it in the end.
Trash housekeeper! Hurry up and prepare the meal!
Instead of worrying about me as I collapsed from dizziness, my husband George shoved me away annoyingly and glared at me with irritation. As his attitude drained the color from my face, I slumped to the floor, leaning against it, while he started watching TV, ignoring me completely. Staring blankly at this unbelievable scene, someone suddenly appeared behind George, blurting out words of surprise to him.
Is that all you have to say?
Right after, George turned around to see who it was and his face turned pale with shock. My name is Marie. I'm a 34-year-old housewife. I've been married to George, who is 5 years my senior, for almost 2 years now. These 2 years have been like living in hell.
What is this disgusting meal? Didn't you learn to cook from my mom?
For the first year of our marriage, I lived with his parents. It was, so to speak, training for marriage. George is an extreme mama's boy, and his mother, Catherine, was what you'd call a zealously educational mom. She was incredibly strict about manners, my rules. No talking back aloud. A perfect example of a parent whose behavior negatively influences their children.
A woman should be this way, and it's only natural to respect your husband. A wife who can't prioritize her husband is just useless.
Raised in such a family environment, George was looking for a wife like his mom, he murmured when we first got married. Unaware of all this, I was easily swayed by his sweet talk, resulting in a hellish marriage.
Marie, what I want for you is to be a devoted wife to George, supporting him. For that, I'll need to be tough on you, to raise you strictly. All of this is to ensure you two can live happily as a couple.
Please bear with it. As Catherine declared, from the day we started living together, she used me like a servant. Doing chores was a given, and reading the room was a must. I had to wake up earlier than anyone in the family, and I wasn't allowed to rest until I had sent everyone off to work. I had to start eating after everyone else and finish before them, or I'd be lectured for an hour. Any slight difference in taste would result in being verbally beaten by Catherine and George. They successfully trained me to be a wife who wouldn't dare defy her husband. Now, I'm scared to even express my opinion to him. If he comes home in a low mood, I spend the mealtime trembling in fear. What part of this is a harmonious family life? Now, I only have doubts, but back then, I was completely disheartened and didn't even have the energy to think about it. It's like you can't do any household chores properly.
What has your mother taught you? At this rate, it would be easier to train a stray cat.
About a week after starting to live in my in-laws' house, Catherine's true nature began to show, and from that moment on, I was subjected to daily sarcastic comments. Cleaning the hallway with a rag was the norm. Not a speck of dust or dirt was allowed. It was natural to serve homemade food to your husband. No matter how hard it was, cutting corners was not allowed. To top it off, I was told to do the laundry by hand. Even though there was a perfectly good drum washing machine right in front of me, I was not allowed to use it.
For a housewife who has time on her hands, seeking convenience is outrageous. A housewife is supposed to suffer through hand pain. You're the first daughter-in-law I've seen who only learns to take it easy.
While complaining loudly, Catherine effortlessly used the drum washing machine right in front of me. Unable to endure the overly harsh environment, I once cried to George for help, but he refused to listen to my concerns.
How could you insult someone's mother like that? What kind of education did you receive to grow up into such a person? My family is perfect. Maybe it's your fault that mom has to discipline you so harshly?
George never acknowledged any fault in his mother. Instead, he frequently misused the word discipline, as if he thought of me as no better than a dog or a cat.
Mom is right. There's nothing wrong with what she says.
It's like he's a follower. Completely brainwashed, he wouldn't even pretend to listen to me, settling everything with "it's all your fault." This was also reported to Catherine, and from the next day I was forced to go shopping on foot. I was not even allowed to use public transport for shopping trips, no matter how far. I had to walk everywhere.
From now on, live your life in a dress. The disorder in your lifestyle stems from your behavior. Welcome your husband home in a dress. Eat all your meals standing up. I won't allow you to sit in a chair.
The level of harassment I faced as his wife was beyond what could be dismissed with just a quaint word. I thought about running away, unable to endure any longer, but I had no parents, and my only sibling, my brother Tony, was married and living in India. I had nowhere and no one to turn to for help. I cried every day and night, gradually wearing down mentally. By the time we finished our marriage training and started living together, I was emaciated. I was drained physically and emotionally.
Honey, please. I feel sick. Can you let me go to the hospital?
About a week after we started living together. I hadn't had my period, and I was plagued by daily nausea and headaches. I decided to talk to George about my poor health. There was no chance of pregnancy since we hadn't been intimate since getting married. If not that, then perhaps it was indeed an illness. The headache was too severe to even get up, and my body felt weak and unresponsive like anemia. My condition was clearly severe, beyond what could be endured quietly. When I spoke to him with a pale face, he responded with annoyance and refused my request.
What do you mean by feeling sick? Be specific. You're always lacking in details. Are you even thinking before you speak? Raised spoiled by your parents, that's why you ended up like this. Thinking others will understand your feelings with just a little hint, that's why you can't manage yourself. I'm tired, you know. Don't waste my precious time with your words. Make your point quickly and specifically. Don't irritate me with every little thing.
Hearing his sarcastic complaints made my ears hurt and worsened my headache. I regretted getting married in this insane situation. He never showed any signs of this behavior while we were dating, but as soon as we got married, this happened. He used to be kind, always sincere, and full of charm, popular at work.
Marie is really clumsy and can't be left alone.
I worked at the same company as George. When I got the job at this major company after studying hard, Tony was so happy that he cried. At that time, my parents were still alive. So when I got the job, Tony came back from India for me, and we spent time together as a family.
If you ever have any trouble, call me anytime. Even if we're apart, I'm still your brother.
Tony, 7 years my senior, really doted on me. There were aspects of George that reminded me of Tony, which drew me to him. He was caring, laughed off my clumsiness, sincere, smart, and a reliable big brother figure to everyone. He was someone I admired.
With the headache, nausea, and dizziness, I'll go get some medicine from the hospital, so please, could you give me some money for the consultation?
I couldn't feel a trace of his kindness from back then. Not a speck remained. Now, he seemed like a completely different person. Cruel to the point where the word brutal fits, not seeing me as a person. He looked at me with a scornful gaze, as if he was looking at trash, instilling nothing but fear in me.
It's all just indulgence. What?
I didn't expect to receive any money honestly, but I was at a loss for words at his unexpected response.
Living as a housewife, being pampered, and yet you complain? Where in your lifestyle do you find the cause for dizziness, nausea, headaches? It's all just excuses to avoid doing household chores. That's not. I didn't mean that.
Not working outside, and you talk about headaches. That's laughable. Just take some over-the-counter medicine and get over it. I won't allow a waste of money.
The household finances were entirely managed by George's salary. He confessed before we got married that he couldn't do anything around the house and wanted me to handle the household chores as a housewife.
Don't worry about money. Whether we have 3 or 4 kids, I'll earn enough working outside. I want you to do what I can't.
Even I, as unreliable as I was happy to be of help to him. I had no hesitations about leaving my job if it meant being his support. I believed we would have a happy life together. But this was the reality that awaited me. I became like a bird trapped in a cage, forced into a constrained life.
Enough, someone, please help me.
After George, who wouldn't even consider my illness, stormed out of the living room in anger, I collapsed on the spot and cried. I was overwhelmed by a ceaseless flow of sorrow, lacking the will to fight back. I wanted to disappear. If I had to stay here, I'd rather end my life. Mentally and physically cornered, I left the house without telling him, heading outside. Walking for a while, I unknowingly passed near where my childhood home used to be. Having run out barefoot, I realized my feet were in tatters. I couldn't walk any further. It was a slightly chilly autumn. I was lightly dressed, so the cold wind made me shiver. What would happen if I just let the cold take me? Could I find an easy way to the next world? As I collapsed in front of the empty house that used to be mine, I lay down on the ground. I couldn't think of anything. I didn't want to. I just wanted to disappear. That's when I heard it. Through my hazy consciousness, I heard someone calling me.
Hey! Hold on! Open your eyes!
Feeling a sense of nostalgia for the unknown voice, my consciousness faded away. I woke up to find myself lying on the bed. Having shone an unfamiliar ceiling and slowly opened my eyes to a warm room and the smell of delicious bread. As I tried to sit up and look around to grasp the situation.
Awake now?
A slightly older man who felt strangely familiar stood there. As I felt wary of this person I didn't recognize, he saw my fear and laughed heartily.
What, you don't remember? Well, no surprise there. It's been over 20 years, after all.
Hearing his cheerful laughter and words, a memory flashed in my mind.
Could it be Mike? Spot on. Long time no see, Marie. I was passing by your family's old house and saw you collapsed. Seriously freaked me out. What were you doing there?
Mike. My childhood friend and Tony's best friend, with whom I used to play until middle school. He moved away when we entered high school, and though we lost touch, he and Tony had remained in contact, and apparently, he had heard a lot about me. Now, He's the owner of a transport company and a father of 2.
I never thought Mike would be here.
I was visiting my grandma's grave with my family and decided to take a trip here. More importantly, what happened? You were so cold when I found you, I rushed you to my parents' house.
Mike's wife, Lily, a nurse, had assessed my condition and decided it was safe for me to rest, so they took me to Mike's parents' house. There, he kindly listened to my situation. Lily stayed by my side, crying at the story of a stranger, and hugged me, saying how hard it must have been.
Unforgivable. Someone who can't see others as people should be left immediately.
I also want to escape that house. But I have no relatives or friends to turn to.
Lily's words were exactly what I had been thinking. But she understood my situation as well. Tears flowed as I spoke of my hardships, and she was visibly troubled, searching for words.
If you had a place to live and a job, would that solve the problem?
Huh?
Hearing our conversation, Mike suddenly asked this, leaving me puzzled, unsure of what he meant. Then, he made a call, and after finishing the conversation, he turned to me with a bright smile.
Marie, we will definitely help you out. So, you're leaving that house. I'll support you.
Confused by what he meant, Mike showed me a reassuring smile, signaling he's got this. Little did I know at that moment, this would be the start of my fight back. After hearing my situation, Mike took me in until my condition stabilized. Lily called George, and probably because it was someone else intervening, he didn't try to forcefully take me back. Being away from George seemed to have stabilized me mentally, and my physical condition improved somewhat. However, Lily strongly suggested I visit a hospital.
Marie tends to endure too much, thinking you can handle it, but don't underestimate the illnesses that come from mental stress. Once this is all settled, we must go to the hospital. I'll come with you.
Her genuine concern was evident. And I gratefully accepted her kindness, prioritizing my rest for the time being. A week passed, and Mike said everything was ready, suggesting we go back to my house once.
If anything happens, call me right away. I have my mobile phone.
Mike, thank you for everything.
Encouraged by his dependable words, I decided to return home. Mike accompanied me to the entrance, where George, flustered, welcomed us.
Marie, are you okay? How's your health? Anything wrong?
George, unlike his usual stern self, seemed to be playing the devoted husband, concerned for my well-being. His drastically changed demeanor filled me with fear. He hugged me as if to take me away from Mike, letting out a sigh of relief.
Marie, I was wrong. I failed to empathize with your suffering, and I'm responsible for the pain I caused.
I'm truly sorry. Thank you for coming back. Frozen by his unexpected words, I met Mike's gaze, who silently mouthed "Be strong" to me before discreetly leaving so as not to arouse George's suspicion. Once Mike was out of sight, George stepped back and, ruffling his hair in frustration, let out a big sigh.
You know what you've done, right?
His words, muttered with annoyance, froze me with fear. His tone was now cold, as if he was bothered by the inconvenience I brought. Hesitant to enter, George forcibly pulled me inside and roughly let go of my hand.
Relying on some guy I don't even know. I never thought you were such a shameful woman.
His hurtful words brought tears to my eyes. Despite my resolve to be strong upon returning, his gaze and harsh words made me tremble uncontrollably. I'm scared. I want to leave. It's too hard. As these thoughts swirled in my heart, my vision darkened with dizziness. As I leaned on him, about to fall, he pushed me away in disgust, spitting out words with annoyance.
Stop with the act. I don't even want to touch someone as filthy as you.
Pushed by him, I stumbled against the wall and collapsed in the hallway. Without a care for me, George turned on the TV, lounged on the sofa, and ordered me to do housework.
Housekeeper, get the meal ready. Because of you, I haven't had a decent meal in a week. Cooking and laundry are all you're good for, so hurry up and get it done.
Looking around, I saw piles of laundry and dishes left out. The house in complete disarray. I can't do this anymore. I can't go on with this person. I want a divorce. Just as I thought this, someone approached George from behind and spoke up.
Is that all you have to say?
Shocked by the familiar voice, George slowly turned around to see the person standing there, his face draining of color.
Tony! Why are you here?
There stood Tony, supposed to be in India, his presence bringing panic to George's face.
Never mind that. What the hell have you been doing to my sister, huh?
Tony's intimidating presence made George tremble with fear. Tony, who had been working in civil construction in India, had grown bigger and more robust since leaving the US. It was no surprise that George, with his slender frame, would be intimidated by Tony's approach. Especially considering Tony's disdain for people who behave inhumanely. George's actions were unforgivable in Tony's eyes, making his anger entirely justified.
No, this is, well, I was just educating my wife or guiding her. Huh, I never knew that pushing a sick woman was part of educating your wife.
George desperately tried to justify his actions. At that moment, Mike, who had supposedly left, peeked into the living room, flashing a refreshing smile and addressed George.
What are you doing here? How did you get in? How? The door was unlocked. You have to check these things. Even with autolock, it won't work if the door isn't properly closed.
What he pulled out was a thin handkerchief, stained as if it had been wedged in something.
No way! When you hugged me, I dropped it on the floor so the door wouldn't close. That way, Mike and the others could easily get into the house later.
Supported by Lily, I managed to stand up, despite feeling dizzy. George's expression, as he alternated between looking at me and Tony, was filled with panic and fear. Realizing the trick Mike and I had used to enter and that this had been planned from the start left George in shock. He had always left security concerns to me, so it was clear he wouldn't have checked the lock himself, assuming the door would lock automatically. He never worried about it, which was easy to predict.
I've heard all about it from Marie and Mike. You seem to have taken good care of my sister while I was in India. I've recorded this entire conversation. Marie has been meticulously keeping a diary of everything, and we've recorded all texts and calls from you. All of it has been submitted to a lawyer. We'll be demanding compensation for everything, including Marie's health issues. From now on, you'll deal with a lawyer regarding the divorce. Don't you dare come near our family ever again.
Everyone glared at George, protecting me and ensuring he had no allies. Tony spoke for me, preventing George's sweet words from swaying me. Hearing the word divorce, George became frantic, reaching out to cling to me. Wait. Please reconsider the divorce. I can't live without Marie. I need her to survive. George desperately tried to portray himself as pitiful. It was clear he needed me for various reasons, but his words no longer reached me. His true intention was to use me, to live comfortably at my expense, and to vent his frustrations on me. I knew what his sweet words really meant, and I wouldn't be fooled again. Mike and Tony bravely intervened to stop George's desperate attempts to win me back. From behind them, I finally voiced my long-suppressed feelings towards George with a coldness I had never shown before.
With you, I never had a moment of happiness in our marriage. It was a daily struggle, thinking only of escaping. Who would want to stay in such a home? I want nothing to do with you from now on. Don't you dare come near me or my loved ones ever again.
Perhaps because I had never shown my emotions like this before, George stopped resisting in shock. Overwhelmed by the reality before him, he collapsed, drained of all strength. Thus, I was finally freed from George's malevolence and decided to move to India with Tony. After things settled down, I went straight to the hospital with Lily by my side and was diagnosed with depression. Mike suggested that it would be best for my recovery to stay at his place for a while before starting a new life, and I gratefully accepted his offer.
We're here for you. You can rely on us for anything.
If that husband of yours tries to barge in, I'll kick him out myself. Just leave it to me.
Tony and I deeply appreciated their reassuring words and kindness. The reason for Tony's return to US was a call from Mike, who had been on the phone with Tony at that time, informing him of my situation and convincing him to come back immediately.
Why didn't you rely on me?
Although Tony scolded me upon his return, knowing I struggled to ask for help, he also apologized for not coming to check on me sooner in US and hugged me tightly, apologizing repeatedly. Thanks to Tony's quick actions in arranging a lawyer and accommodation, the situation was resolved smoothly.
From now on, live with us over there. Learning a foreign language might be tough, but my wife and friends will give you all the support you need, so don't worry.
Saying so, Tony offered me a job at his company, where his colleagues welcomed me warmly. As for George, he and his mother were sued for moral harassment by us and are now chased by debts. After explaining everything to my former colleagues before leaving US, George lost his position at his company. Losing his credibility, life at the company became difficult for him, leading to his resignation. He now lives at his parents' home, scraping by on day-to-day jobs. He sent me a letter of apology which said the incident taught him that bad actions come back to haunt you. But of course, I couldn't trust his words and made sure to receive compensation from him. My long-living health finally came to an end. Now I live a comfortable and joyful life in India, surrounded by kind people.